Good morning. This is a regular meeting of the Cameron County Commissioners Court. It is about 10:30 in the morning, the 15th day of March, 2012. As we do all meetings, we will start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag. This morning, I'm going to have the young man that's with us from Stell Junior High, our alma mater, Commissioner, to lead us in the pledges to both flags. So please rise as you have for a moment of silence.
One comment before we go into the moment of silence. I'd like to ask the folks in the audience and on this commission to keep in mind Willie Guajardo, who worked for Cameron County for 33 years, retired as Precinct 3 foreman some years back, that passed away, and his funeral is occurring as we are having this meeting. So if you'd keep Willie and his family on your minds and pray for them, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Jonathan?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Correction, Commissioner Benavides also attended Stell Junior High, so, but she's a lot younger than we are, so,
Yeah,
we probably didn't notice her. Public comment, Eugene Allen? Can you please just fix the microphone to make sure we hear you and make sure that the little green blue light is on? Thank you, sir.
There's a service that's occurring in the lower Grandville Valley, and in fact throughout the state of Texas, involving wounded veterans, helping wounded veterans, and this goes to mental health issues. The state of Texas has through the Texas Veterans Commission, has funded the State Department of Health for the purpose of developing mentors among the population of wounded veterans who are doing well enough to mentor other veterans. This is ongoing every week. There's a one-week class at Kaleen. The intention was to use the peer support to safety net the veterans that are coming out of Kaleen, out of the Army post up there. And it has grown to a much bigger, vast operation. Here in the Valley, we have 29 peer support persons, including myself. We're all volunteers, and we're just giving back. We have a unique capacity to relate to veterans because we walk the talk. And what we're trained to do is to receive veterans who are in trauma from PTSD and other effects of war through the Veterans Affairs. The psychiatrists refer patients to us to mentor with them. Unfortunately, they don't all come to us. But those that do, we mentor with them one-on-one. We start by having coffee with them or such contact, and then we go forward to get them in groups. This has been going on for a year. It's rather silent because we invoke privacy with the veterans. It allows them to open up with us and express their trauma. It's very helpful. It's very helpful to their family relationships and their community, and also to thwart suicide and homicide and jail population and so forth. So what we've done is we've now, with the coaching of the state through Department of Health, which is Tropical Texas Behavioral Health out of Edinburgh, we have now, the peers have gone ahead and created meetings in Brownsville, San Benito, Harlingen, and then up the valley. And we've been doing this for a year. After doing this, we see veterans that come through us that are getting well enough to do other things. So we recently created a recreation program. And in that recreation program, we started some fishing and arts and crafts. And I'm not going to belabor that because I left some information on your desk. And the VA has embraced this through Harlingen, the regional office, and actually have gone to create a network to bring in community support. And I want to thank the county because through Sal Castillo and Elizar Castro, you've been providing us with meeting space. You may not even know that because we're not a high-profile service group, and it allows us to have privacy and safety in having these veterans meet. In fact, we're using today. There are 3 boats going out. Had already gone out of Tommy Park, and they're donated by veterans and people who are caring for veterans. So we're using your facilities also, and I want to thank you for that. I do want to give a larger presentation, and Mr. Castillo will try to get on the schedule for that purpose. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ramiro Garza? Sure.
Ramiro, how are you? Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners, guests, and administration. I just wanted to come briefly with you and let you know we now have maps for an election. I know that our election administrator has conveyed a lot of information to you, but for my purpose, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the district. I've handed out some maps to you. It's District 34 for Congress is what Cameron County falls into. This district is pretty diverse. If you look at the lines, it's anchored here in Cameron County, goes into Hidalgo County. All the Cameron County population is included. It includes about 100,000 of Precinct 1 at Hidalgo County, and then it goes up the coast to Kingsville and takes in Jim Wells County, actually all of those counties, and it takes in the western part of San Patricio County, which is the Mathis area and Sinton. And important to us is it's a contiguous 77, which is I-69, that's included. The Sinton area goes right through there. And then it goes northwest to B County, Goliad, DeWitt, and takes in half of Gonzales County. So it's a very unique, interesting district. I think there's some opportunities I see some similarities from a history standpoint and also from the type of counties, the rural nature of the counties, which I think most of the district encompasses, along with some urban areas here in Cameron. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I am Ramiro Garza, and I am a candidate for that district. I was born here in Brownsville, raised in Port Isabel, graduated from high school there, and went to school here at UTB-TSC, and was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree in finance, and also received my master's there. And I actually started working not too far from here at M-Bank. It used to be M-Bank here on Levy Street, right out of through an internship program. But my experience really includes working with the Rio Grande Valley Empowerment Zone. I think y'all may remember when that was designated back in the early 90s. I represented Cameron County in the subzone in Port Isabel at the navigation district there where there's an incubator that was built, and I was charged with working with people that wanted to start their own business and working with the communities all around Cameron County to make sure that anybody that was looking for financing, that was looking to do a business plan or anything like that, that's what I dedicated myself doing. In that process, I found that some of the communities were looking to start their economic development corporations. So I dedicated myself to helping, starting with Port Isabel, create that corporation. And so what I did is I helped them create their strategic plan for the city. And that's kind of their roadmap, what they use for their growth and prosperity for the future. But I was then recruited to Edinburgh, and I was in Edinburgh the last 12 years. I was recruited there to be the director of their EDC, and in that role brought in over 10,000 jobs to that community in this area. And that success led to the appointment to be city manager of that community. In that community, there's over 700 employees, balanced $100 million budget the time that I was there, and we streamlined a lot of city services. And that's why I'm running, because I felt that the experience that I have in local government, creating jobs, is what's needed for this district. And I've stepped down from that role. I was city manager. I stepped down to run to be the next congressman for District 34. And I'm fully committed to helping not only Cameron County, but all of District 34. And my plan is real simple. You know, as a congressman, you don't create jobs, but as a congressman, you could create an environment that cultivates for communities to create opportunities. And my plan is to bring the whole district together, to have the district in a position to take advantage of opportunities. And my priorities are real simple: create good jobs, expand, broaden access to higher education, work with you and others that are trying to improve transportation, while at the same time protecting Medicare and Social Security. That's the basic reason I'm running. I want to use the experience that I have over the last 15 years to apply towards helping this district, which I think at this point is a tremendous opportunity for Cameron County and the whole district to position ourselves to make sure that we attain the resources that we need, but we also are able to come together to build consensus. Because as a congressman, you're only one of over 400 people. And the idea is to have someone that can go up there and build consensus. And that's what I intend to do. That's what I've done the last 15 years. And I humbly ask for everyone's support. But today, I just kind of wanted to introduce myself. We'll see you along the way. Well, I've been seeing some of you in some of the events, but you know, I did want to take the opportunity because everywhere we go, it's kind of like, well, where's the maps? Where's the boundaries? Where's Cameron County fall within the other areas? So I wanted to come bring that to you. And the election date starts May 14th, early voting, and it goes through the 25th. And election day is the day after Memorial Day on May 29th. So we encourage everyone to go out to vote. And if you're not registered to vote, the last day is April 30th to register. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramiro, and wish you well in your endeavors. Mr. Francisco Cifuentes? And that's the last of the public comment, I think.
Good morning, County Judge. Good morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Francisco Cifuentes. I'm a resident of Cameron County. A lot of people are surprised that I'm here today. I have not been around here for quite a while because I did not have anything to discuss. At this time, you all might be surprised that although I'm against tax increases, this time I come before you to ask to consider a pay increase for county employees. I have seen how much they've been struggling the past 5 or 6 years that I have not received an increase. And I don't have any special interest in this case. I'm not making any money. I don't represent one particular department or person. And I am not talking about supervisors or heads of department. I'm talking about the low-level employees. I remember quite a few years ago, County Judge Gilbert Hinojosa called me and said, Cifuentes, we already gave everybody $8 since you and other people have been requesting for a living wage, and we are going to give them the $8. So at that time, a lot of people got out of welfare because they were making $8. The school district, the county, and the city started paying $8. And right now, they're making a little bit more, but they are struggling. They are struggling right now. Many of the secretaries in the different departments, the constables, deputy sheriffs, and the pay is kind of low here in the county. We need to look into it and see if it could be possible after 5 years or 6 years of not receiving an increase. I think it is time to look into it and try to get law enforcement officers a very decent pay. We need them to keep straight, not to be deviate because they don't make enough money to be able to be bought by the bad guys. And I will appreciate very much if you look into it with this next fiscal year during the budget process and see if there is a little 5%, 3, 4, 5% increase for all the employees at the bridge, secretaries, and low-level employees. I will appreciate it. I was very startling surprised that someone was offering $200 and some thousand a year. Wow, that takes the kid. That is incredible. In this part of the county, we have a lot of people that make $150,000, $200,000. They live very good lives, but these people who make $10, $8, $9, $10, $12 an hour, they are struggling. It's very hard. You can talk to your employees and find out. Please consider it this coming fiscal year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cifuentes. Any other public comment? Someone that did not have the opportunity to sign up? All right. Item 2A, President, let me ask you, Pete, is there anything that we need to take out of order? I know you need to, no? Okay. 2A, presentation on the Chrono Series relicense upgrade.
Good morning, Judge Commissioners. We have, with the Chronos company, we have Bobby Roy and Sandy Martin, who will be doing a brief presentation on on what an update would, what it would facilitate for Cameron County as far as the timekeeping system. And with that having said, I will let them take it and do their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you. I'm loud. Thank you so much for having us out. My name is Sandy Martin, and I have with me Bobby Roy, and our objective today is to show you the upgraded application. Today you have an application that you've had for about 10 years, and so we're going to show you some of the options that you can use to enhance what you're currently doing to possibly assist with some of your restraints that you have as far as overtime and comp times and things of that nature. So I'm going to turn it over to Bobby, and feel free to ask us any questions that you need to have addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for having us today. Where I'm going to start is actually with the clock that you see up on the screen, and these are clocks as you come in through the building. You know, we saw one immediately as we walked through the door. I'm going to start there because this is how your employees could use our application to get employees clocked in, clocked out, as well as to do some self-service. Not only could they come in here and, you know, punch in and punch out, but they could even approve their time card. Today, what we understand is a lot of folks are having to sign off physically on a piece of paper to say, yes, I do agree with my time card. These clocks would allow them to approve that. It would also allow them to view their accrual balances, such as vacation, sick, comp, whatever that may be, without having to burden their manager or their, you know, the payroll folks. So these clocks are very powerful. Right now, there's just a couple of options that you have on the clock configured, but as you go forward, these options are there. In addition to what I just mentioned, you also have what we call time off request. So instead of filling out a piece of paper or expecting your manager to remember when you're going to have a vacation day or a time off, you actually can put this automated request in so that you keep audit trails, as well as it deposits into the time card and into their schedule. So we're keeping track with that. Now, I'm going to flip over and go into the actual live software, and Sandy, if you'd like to go anywhere with that as I change.
I'd like to kind of give you an overview of what we've seen happening currently within the county. Today, currently, there's a lot of paper that's still being pushed around the county. The system is not actually being utilized to its full capacity, and you have a real powerful tool there that you can do that with. We see where information is still being on paper, it's being retrieved from here, but there's no audit trails today to validate the information. So there's a lot of storage within the county that's still passing around the paper. The other thing that we've seen is there's really no true checks and balances. There's no reporting to show you if you're having situations with grants, if you're having overtime issues and things of that nature. So what we're hoping to show you in this presentation is how you can enhance that information.
Do you have fail-safe mechanisms to, if we get rid of the paper that we're doing as backup, in case there's a crash or our servers are down, to be able to get to that information to make payroll? Because that comes every 2 weeks, regardless of whether the server failed or the system failed or there's a glitch?
Yes, sir. It actually, everything is stored. There's a complete audit trail that's associated with that. If there's a network, as far, I guess you could say a electrical issue, you wouldn't be able to get that information. So, I mean, how often does that happen where you have no electricity? I mean, that would be an issue with it today. But in that same scenario, you probably wouldn't be able to get to your payroll system also. So with that, we have all the information stored online. It's an excellent tool for FLSA as far as record retention, so that you keep everything, including any audit trails that are associated with that, who made the changes, who approved it. So it's a good checks and balance if you're ever audited for FLSA purposes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the screen that you're looking at here is actually the screen where payroll managers could actually come into the application and at a glance see, is somebody meeting what we expected them to work? So, you expect your employees to be here 8.5 hours or 8 hours. Are they really working that schedule? Making sure that they're not going into overtime, whether it be that you're part of that 171 hours in 28 days, or if you're an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday type employee. But what you're seeing here on the screen is we actually bring things to the surface so that you can act upon them. So in this case, you're noticing that we have early ends and we have late outs. What does that mean? Well, somebody's not meeting that schedule. How late out are they? Not only are we seeing that, but we're also seeing how many regular hours and overtime hours do we have people working. So you can catch those things even before they occur. So, we may find that somebody's going into an overtime situation, and then we can regroup and maybe shuffle our staff around so that we're not incurring those overtime costs. So it really does bring things to the surface. Sandy brought up a good point. Tracking time against grants, making sure that when your folks come in, what are they working on so that you can charge it back or at least be accountable. Our system allows you to be accountable because it's a system of record. It allows you to see those audit trails, who's doing what, when they did it, and you can see the before and after. So you have somebody come in.
Can you tell me what we have now?
What you have now?
Yeah, what do we have now? What does our system do in today's time?
You're talking about your current Chronos system?
Right.
Your current Chronos system can do all the things that we're showing with some limitations because of new technology. What you're doing today is it's kind of like a automated paper time system, because there's still a paper timesheet that's being completed. And so you're starting with full buckets of hours, and it's really not being used to the capacity that a timekeeping system should be used at.
So it's not necessarily that the system that can't do it, it's that we're not utilizing it in that manner.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the other thing is the system that you have today it's I hate to use the word, but it's kind of outdated because it's been many years since you did an upgrade. So there's some things within the application that need to be modified to assist, like with technology department and things of that nature. But today, it's definitely not being utilized to its full capacity.
And what you're bringing to us will get us to full capacity?
What we're proposing is we've got a new release, so we'd upgrade your application. We also have some professional service, meaning someone would be here to assist you with configuring some additional things that we see. There's some additional things that we would recommend that's probably not budgeted, but one thing that we've seen is when an account has been a customer for a long time, such as the county, what we see is there's a training that starts here in another group and then another group. And as the years go by, the person that's utilizing the application today hasn't been trained to its full capacity. Plus, additionally, what we see is the people that's using the application doesn't really know enough about the software to know how it can help them.
To get the full potential.
To get the full potential, such as, like we were talking about reports. How can we see if there is an overtime situation? With budgets as tight as they are today, we definitely need to be proactive and have visibility to all of that information. Management needs to be able to see if we're in an overtime situation. And sometimes what you see in a scenario like that is maybe you're busy at the end of the week but not at the beginning of the week. And so maybe you can restructure your work schedules.
Does this system incorporate computer logins and things of that sort?
Yes, sir.
So you don't necessarily have to go to your clock somewhere? You can
We
just
have
log
an
in?
option to do it from a desktop, meaning a PC.
Right.
We have the option, and you have that ability, or you can go to a clock and clock in and out. And what we find from experience is it's really dictated by the type of personnel. Some personnel would not have access to a PC, and others would.
Right.
And so it's dependent upon your geographic as far as your employees.
Are we utilizing that option today?
You're using a portion of that
Okay.
today. Like I said, it's very minimal what's being used today based on the information that we've gathered thus far. Additional things that we would, I would recommend in the future for maybe a budget in the future is performing what we call an optimization. That's where we come in and we physically evaluate the processes that the county is doing today. We come in and we see what you're doing. We make recommendations. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but it gives you a true footprint and a guideline to enhance that product as you move forward. Okay, Bobby.
Martha, you provided a listing of the departments that were currently on Cronus and those that were not utilizing the Cronus.
That's correct,
right?
yes.
I think the court needs to give direction to management as to which departments need to go on Cronus, which ones it's not practical to go, and the ones that do not, that you do not recommend go on Cronus. Why is it that we're not? I saw there's a whole, my office included. Mine was at the top of the list in terms of, my 2 people or 3 people that don't have access to Cronus. But there's there was more people off of it than on it.
Could you tell us
and
why it
well,
wouldn't be?
It would
Yeah,
be
please,
our-
I'm sorry, but let me go back a little bit before I forget. There was a time when it was brought to the Commissioner's Court to instruct that everybody go on Cronus, but for some reason it just never got implemented. There was some resistance to it, and as we're learning with other areas that we need to take a position, say, you know what, either we're all going to be on it. If you cannot be on it, the only group that I would think would have a problem getting on it would be maybe the law enforcement group, because they'll say, well, we leave from our house, we have our vehicles, we don't go somewhere to clock in and clock out. I'd like to hear from you all, first of all, is there a way that law enforcement can log in without having to go to Carrizales Rucker or their home plate? The other issue that I know Commissioner Sanchez has brought up numerous times, and we all have, on the overtime issue. By the time the overtime issue comes up, it's a done deal, we got to pay it. In your system, I think what I heard you briefly say was that we would be able to monitor that overtime before it occurs. So now I want to hear from you all, if A, is there a way that law enforcement, which seems to be the issue, can clock in? And then 2, Marta, after they get done with that, then give us a very, very brief history as to how Cronus came and why we have not been able to implement everybody on there. Go.
Okay, in reference to the first question about the law enforcement office, there's a couple of ways that we can address that. One is if they currently have, for example, telephones, we have the ability for an officer to log in and out. I don't know if that's something that's acceptable within the county, but it is an option. The nice thing about this is it's an application and acts just like the clock out there on the wall. The beauty to it, it's an app that resides on the phone, and it takes the GPS coordinates. The GPS coordinates is then in the timesheet, so at any time, then you could actually see where that person clocked in and clocked out. That's option 1. Option 2, do they have laptops in their vehicles? If they have a laptop in their vehicle, you already today own an application, so they could log in from their desktop, their PC in their device, in their car. The third option would be if you have just a telephone. The telephone, we have a system, it's called Teletime, and basically they could log in from a telephone. There's options, you've probably gone through these where it's press 1 for this, press 2 for that. So there's actually 3 different options there that we can provide to them. Regardless of the option, it's all in the time card, and it shows the audit trail, so if you ever go through an FLSA audit, the information resides in there.
A follow-up question on Commissioner Sanchez's question regarding the backup. You said if it was an electrical issue that you wouldn't be able to access it, but I think the important question is if there's an electrical outage, is it stored within the system until the lights come back on? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, it's always stored so that, you can always retrieve that information. You even have the ability to archive data offline so that as you move forward, in years as far as record retention, things of that nature, you can move it off-site. It can be used for reporting, but it doesn't stay in the active directory for that payroll.
So all of this is held online somewhere?
It's held on your AS400 here. We also have the ability, if that's a concern, we also offer a hosting environment, meaning that, if you're concerned with like hurricanes, things of that nature, where everything's housed at a Kronos location, not at a county level. So that's an option. It's not something we've talked about, but it is available to you.
The only reason I raise the issue is we recently, a few months ago, had the issue where our servers went down.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of crippled the county.
I understand. So that would be, that's some options for you. But all the data is there. It resides there, so you can run reports and things of that nature. I think you had a second question for me. What was the... Sorry, but I knew there were two questions.
Senior moment.
Well,
I'll bring you some medicine the next time.
I'll ask a question that might remind him what he was...
Okay.
So basically, there's no reason why not all of our employees should be connected.
That's correct. And the nice thing about, I was a payroll director for a very large organization. About 7,500 people used Kronos, and was a customer for a very long time. And even salaried exempt personnel, we used it where they just had to acknowledge I was there. We used it for security purposes to let us know who was present on a facility. So, we had everyone from the top all the way down using Kronos as in some form or fashion. Oh, overtime. The overtime issue that you were talking about. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, and I just want to make sure that is the answer, so there's no reason why all our employees aren't on it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because especially like today, for example, with an exempt employee, you still have leave of absence, you still have a sick day, you may take a jury duty day, you may have, bereavement, all those things. So if you do not use Kronos, you're still going to have to go back to paper to put an absence in. So if you're on Kronos, you put in that information. You can use the clock, such as Bobby just talked about. If the employee goes up, it's really a good tool to empower your employees, make them responsible, because it's their paycheck. So the beauty to that is they can go up and request that information at the clock. It routes to their supervisor then rejects or approves it. You may have certain stipulations where you have to have so many types of personnel on a job, so many police, so many, supervisors, things of that nature. So the software will help you manage that. Back to the question on the overtime. With the overtime, the information, you need to make sure that people are making those adjustments. Say, for example, sick and they're clocking in, clocking out, and people are monitoring that. Then you have a real-time snapshot of your overtime on any given day if you want to know what your overtime budget is. So, then right there you can run a report, and see that information at a glance. And we have so many customers that are doing this. The information is being pushed out immediately because we need to know what those budgets are. The same with your comp time. The rules can be embedded into the application to let you know. So someone does not have to know the rules of FLSA. They know what the thresholds are. They know how many hours can be accumulated before it's law that you have to pay them overtime. So all of that is embedded into the application. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Martha, before you start, Martha, just a really quick question. If we, let's say, go Kronos all the way to everybody that can do it, how much time does that take off of you in terms of generating and reviewing payroll timesheets every other week?
We have not calculated that in particular. What it would do would be a lot of the information would flow a lot smoother. It would flow automatically. We would not have to retain as much paper as we presently have to retain forever, because payroll records and payroll timesheets are eternal. So all of that information would be electronically stored. It would alleviate a lot of our actual manual record keeping that we have to do presently, and it would free up payroll's time to do a lot of other functions that they could address within the payroll scope.
So you wouldn't have to manually go over all the timesheets like you're doing now, because it'd be all electronic, right?
That is correct. We would have the information electronically, and they would be able to say, okay, this individual met the 160 hour, they qualify for overtime, or they were working here at this time, and there would be no overlap. Any overlapping of time would be electronically picked up by the systems to where it would not have to be done manually.
So you just get flagged,
Yes.
basically, kind of like the early ins and the early outs.
Correct. How much? It would probably be around 132,000. This is not an action item. This is a presentation item. We will bring it back for
But
the
the
next meeting.
132,000 is what? To
It had-
upgrade?
To upgrade
to
and
this.
and for the maintenance and
But
the
it's not going to
training.
do any good in terms of best bang for your buck unless we get everybody on there to do it.
That's correct, and that's
As-
where.
Yeah, and as a follow-up question on this in terms of what steps are eliminated, does the system interface with the payroll? In other words, do everything but generate the check as well?
Yes, at the end of the pay period, what would happen is a file would be generated and it would be uploaded with the payroll data into your SunGuard application. So the probability of somebody miskeying or keying in a wrong, lead code or anything like that, it's not done because it's a file that's automatically uploaded into your SunGuard application. Also, on the HR side, the information from SunGuard then is actually retrieved, and it's called an employee file. Instead of somebody having to key that information into Kronos, the file brings that information into Kronos, and so then the information resides there so the employee can clock in and clock out or do whatever functions you require them to do.
How much training do you offer staff?
We actually have that built into the proposal that she just stated. We have, hold on just a second, I'll tell you.
Odyssey doesn't have a management system for time for employees? This is, no? No. I mean, because most of those employees on the Odyssey system are not on Kronos.
Correct.
Out of curiosity. I mean, I know that I downloaded an application on my computer at work for like almost nothing to do this stuff, on a personal PC where everybody has access to the same PC, not where they do all this exotic stuff. But it's not like rocket scientist stuff anymore. It's pretty.
Since the, since the time system resides on the AS400 and those are our tax users utilize the AS400 for the tax system, we incorporated a shortcut on the tax menu to allow them to clock in and clock out to capture all the punches for the tax people. I don't know, maybe that's something that we could do with Odyssey also, incorporate a shortcut within the Odyssey program to track back to Kronos and they could log in via their.
Let me ask you, are there, aside from the price to upgrade, is there anything else that we would have to pay for in terms of hardware or software upgrades to be able to do this?
Hardware, it's the AS400. The upgraded version does fall within the range.
So we're okay?
We're okay. We're okay on hardware-wise. Clocks, we have 39 clocks throughout the county already. We do have some replacements available as needed. I don't see any hardware costs.
Tell me what the downside is. If there is a downside to bringing everyone that can be on board, what would be the downside?
Efficiency.
That's a downside.
No, I'm saying that's what we're going to get is efficiency.
In regards to the upgrade, we dropped support back in 2007, so we didn't pay support for 4 years at roughly $40,000. So it was about $160,000 savings that we've had. But since we don't have support, we don't get the upgrade.
But how much did we pay in overtime in the last 4 years?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, close, over, almost
But
almost
the
2
thing
million.
is, though, you don't control overtime unless you use the information that the system produces. Because, you know, if somebody doesn't look at the reports or looks at the daily late in and late outs, or early in and late outs, you know, you don't control it. It's all a supervisory tool that's gonna be available there for folks that wanna use it.
Well, but couldn't we have payroll report to us at our meetings when there's overtime issues to kind of keep us aware?
Yep.
Right? I mean, they'll have time to do that since we're going to be eliminating some of their work.
Well, I think that's a good point, but I think by the time it's reported to us, it's already incurred. And I think that the answer would be to try to get anticipated overtime. And I mean, I don't know how to do that. I mean, I think overtime has always been an issue, and I just don't know if we're going to be able to cure it.
we could give the court access to their times and let the court at their leisurely review time and attendance of
Well, I think
X.
most importantly, you gotta let the
departments.
supervisor of that department have access to the times of the folks.
Correct. But-
And you know, I mean, we pass a policy where we're not gonna pay for overtime.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's, if the court, if we as individually want to go and start looking at everybody's timesheets and overtime.
Well, I mean, not
think that-
necessarily looking at everybody's timesheet, but you could generate a report and say, who are the top hitters as of right now? And pop out the first 10 people. That's it's just options.
Yeah, and but that's after the fact. I mean, our problem is not, our problem is that we've already incurred the overtime, we got to pay it. The idea, how can we curtail it?
Well, but would payroll be able to, again, thinking of time that they're saving by not having to do all the paperwork, monitor, on a daily basis, who are the top 10? And look to see, are these the same recurring? So before you get to the end of the pay period, if you've got someone that worked on a daily basis 2 or 3 extra hours than they should have, then it'll raise a flag and you can, notify the department, hey, in case you weren't aware, employee 486 spent an extra 4 hours at work yesterday that, yeah, you're going to have to send them home early tomorrow or before the end of the payroll. Is there a way to do that?
We even have approaching overtime, so the manager that's even getting into Kronos, they're gonna have a dashboard that's gonna show them, these are the employees that are approaching overtime. So even before overtime occurs, or.
There's an alert in there.
There's an alert.
Oh,
It's gonna
okay.
say, hey, guess what? You better let Sandy, go home early maybe today, because you have enough coverage, or, you need to adjust your schedule. So
Okay.
it is gonna alert you.
And it's just a matter of, someone doing something with the information they get.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
I have an issue or a question. What happens when the employee swipes early? Does the time start ticking from that point on? Because based on what I've seen, the time I've been here, some employees, I'm not saying all employees, but they'll do that, and they then at the end of the pay period or end of the 2 months, they say, hey, wait a minute, you owe me
Right.
X amount of hours of comp time. They never left early, and then it's
No.
a supervisory issue, a role to say, I'm going to pay you that comp time or I'm not. As a precinct commissioner, I would not do it. I would be coming early, you come in early.
Right.
But you're scheduled to work from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and that's it.
Right.
And,
You're
but
bringing up a good point. Well,
because
there's a
that
couple-
will skewer the,
Right. There's a couple of ways. We can enforce restrictions, schedule restrictions, so that, they can only clock in a certain, time before their schedule is supposed to begin. You can have rounding rules and grace periods and those types of things within the configuration that can take care of that, so that you're meeting more of their schedule. Because, if I'm coming in, I may be coming in 30 minutes early, but do I really start work until 8? Maybe I'm just sitting around or visiting with my friends. But yeah, those are some policies that you can enforce, but you could restrict it altogether, so that they'd have to go back to the clock or to that PC once that threshold was open to say, yes, it's now time that you can clock in. Now, if it was a real situation where you called them in early, supervisor can override that and put it in for them.
I have no problem with that. I agree when the supervisor
Yeah.
authorizes
Absolutely.
the time, then it's all right. But a
Absolutely.
lot of times, employees, they do it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15
know.
minutes, and over a 2 or 3 month
It adds
period, it adds
up.
up to a bunch of hours.
Absolutely. That's what we see.
And then we're almost forced to pay it if nobody makes an issue
I
of
know,
it.
I know. But you can put some things in place that will restrict as well as, enforce some of your rules.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
Kronos was implemented by Cameron County, I believe it was back in 2002. In 2004, I believe, is when Cameron County started using the actual time and attendance of having employees punch in. It has never been fully utilized by Cameron County, and the biggest drawback has been departmental resistance to having to punch in, to having to use the time clock. And this system has been underutilized, as you have heard, for many, many years. This is something that we would recommend that the court mandate or adopt for Cameron County. And there's always going to be departmental resistance because some people are just not going to want to use it. And
Change always brings that, right?
yes, and it is very difficult, and I don't think that the court can really tell an elected official, you have to use this and you will use it. So from that standpoint, commissioners, we as payroll would basically look to that department to have a time manager in their department that will be responsible for monitoring everybody's time and inputting their data if they're not going to require every employee to individually, clock in or clock
Or
out.
can't we make it a policy that if you don't clock in and out through Kronos, you don't get paid?
I'd look to civil for that.
I mean-
If an employee is working and they can prove that they have worked, we have an obligation to pay them. Is that correct?
So,
whether they clock in or not is not the issue. Did they work from FLSA viewpoint?
So there will be growing pains with this if it is fully implemented. It is our recommendation, and I think it will enhance county operations and it will streamline and improve our efficiency, particularly in the overtime and in the comp time being earned by employees presently.
well, I completely agree, but again, it goes back to what the judge said earlier. If we're not gonna be able to force everyone to use it, are we spinning our wheels?
Well, but I believe that the biggest thing there would be that the information would be expected to come into our financial system electronically from Kronos. So this information is going to have to come in.
But
Well,
how do we
if-
force
if
that?
you gotta generate a paycheck, Commissioner. And if you don't get that information, there ain't no paycheck generated. It's kind of like the situation that we had with the direct deposits
Yes.
and doing that part. We went through a similar exercise not too many years ago where we went completely checkless in regards to payroll. And that transition was a little painful because some people were used to getting a printed check every 2 weeks.
To go to the bank and cash.
Yeah, and go to that process. But we were able to offer direct deposit. We were able to offer a card system that everyone has now partaken in. The federal government has done the same thing, even with Social Security type of checks, and no checks in the mail now. And, everybody has gotten accustomed to that process, right, Martha?
They have gotten accustomed to it. For the most part, we are still trying to implement the actual pay card system. And part of that is the way the contract reads that the bank is giving us to initiate the pay card system. But it has been very, very successful.
Right.
This past pay period,
But
we
this
only
initiative
cut-
would not be any different than that learning curve
Correct.
we had.
Correct, yes.
Doing that.
For this past payroll, we only actually physically printed 55 checks out of roughly 1,900 employees. So
Yeah.
it has been very, very successful.
Okay.
And it has relieved you of a workload that you don't have to do now, and you can do other things.
It's much easier for bank reconciliation purposes. I would presume that, it's much easier for the treasurer's office to not have to physically sort and stuff and distribute. County employees don't have to come in to pick up their check from outside locations. So it has helped tremendously, yes.
And without being the Scrooge again, the ability that we have is controlling the budgets of the elected officials. And I don't want to assume right now that elected officials or department heads are going to be resistant. I think we give them the opportunity. I think you're going to find that most will come on board. Those that do not come on board, then we really evaluate not only their budgets, but their compensation come budget time. And we look at that. But I think we go forward assuming that everyone that can be on board, is on board. But is there any department or scenario that you can tell me where Cronus would not be worthwhile or would not work? Is there, because I want to be able to, if I hear from somebody, whomever it is, you know what, this doesn't work for us, I want to be able to go to you, say, he or she is telling us it does not work for us, tell us why it does not work. Pete, are you going to tell us it does not work? I'm sorry? And that's what.
But they can do it by phone, can't they?
They can do it by a Palm Pilot, an inexpensive Palm Pilot, if that's still mobile time.
Yeah.
And then they can get to a base and sync it at that time.
Well, we have a computer at the office there that they can log into also.
Exactly, you could do that.
If a location doesn't have connectivity, there's other means. They have dial-up. If you can get a phone line to that location, then we can have a time clock that will dial out to it. If there's no phone line available, you can't get a phone line out to it, then you have a Palm Pilot. Key it in. It's not real time, but when you get to Isla Blanca Park, you plug it in and it transfers the time.
Correct. Keep in mind, as we're having these discussions, if you're going to speak, I'm getting our TV people saying that they cannot hear, so they couldn't hear all your comments. Just so you know, just to speak into the microphone so that we can get logged in. Okay, I'm sorry. Marta?
What about people that work more than their 40-hour week on a regular basis because they want to? And I don't mean like clock-in employees, but we have some employees that, attend meetings and do this and do that. Is there any issue as far as the legality of exempt employees working more than the 40-hour week that once it gets recorded would become a liability for the county?
I'm not I'm going to say I'm not an expert in that field, so I'll put a disclosure on there. But with exempt personnel, we still wanted to record for reporting purposes, their ins, their outs. We had some that we wanted to know. It was not for tracking of time, but it was for reporting for us to let us know what facility they were in case of an emergency, because we've got some things, crazy things going on in the world today. And so we needed to know at any given time who was on the premises. So we have the ability to run on-premises reports. If you're working as like I'm an exempt employee, I'm all over the United States, and we use the Kronos application. We put in there if we're going to training and things of that nature, because for budgetary reasons, we need to know how many hours are we actually contributing to those other features, not just in and out times.
Okay.
Right. Oh, and that's a good point, because earlier someone made a comment about someone making $200,000, and it'd be good to show that that person works 80 hours a week,
I have a scenario. I had another facility where their overtime budget was very, it was so huge that they were actually ready to fire everyone in this department. So we started monitoring it. What we found was there's some stipulations where it was in a warehouse department where they couldn't deliver items to the facilities until after hours. So what we did, we showed that the after hours was what was throwing everything into an overtime situation. So what they did was they modified the work schedule. Rather than requiring them to work to 8 to 5 and then come in and do the extra duties after hours to move computer equipments into facilities, they just monitored the day.
They shifted it.
They shifted it. So in other words, they just were working smarter. Instead of saying, okay, our mentality says we work 8 to 5 every day. But from 5 to 9 or 5 to midnight, we're having to load computers in the
We're going to do a
facility.
1 to 9 schedule.
Exactly, so they just flipped the schedule and had them come in later and do that. So those were some of the things we were able to uncover with using the application.
Well, the other thing too is, like, for workers' comp purposes, I know a few weeks ago, our assistant county administrator went with the judge and I to San Antonio on a holiday to go to a meeting up there on the next day. And so if something happens to you while you're on county business, then you're covered under comp. And if you're not keeping track of that, it becomes an issue.
The application is excellent. From being in the payroll department, we used it a lot to track our workers' comp because you can track that information in the timesheet. So there's all kinds of reporting that we were able to generate. You unfortunately can see repeat offenders. You can start watching calendars. So we were actually able to track our comp time. We were also able to track our FMLA in the application to make sure that we were doing the things that we needed to do to make sure that we were compliant. And we were also able to track our leave, people that go out on short-term and long-term leave. An exempt employee might got on leave, but is all the paperwork actually being reported back to payroll for processing? So there's all types of savings you uncover when you start rolling out a system like that.
Thank you. Marta, I think Roger wanted to say something. Roger?
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to ask them if there's a way that we could have election workers working, clocking in through that same system where we have their pay being paid from different funds. They're working for 3 or 4 different jurisdictions and they're getting paid, but we have to split that cost among 4 or 5 different jurisdictions at the same time, so it would be different funds.
I wouldn't think why they could not. You can.
Yes, we do that, absolutely. That's exactly what we do.
Okay. Marta?
Super nice.
I think that we need to move on this in a way in which everyone is on it, and if somebody doesn't want to be on it and wants to be exempt,
Explain
they
to
need
us.
to tell us why.
Give us good reason. But I guess the most important thing is you're going to have to find money, right? 140,000?
Actually, when the equipment list was presented, this was a plan, a cost that was approved with the contention that, with a consensus that this particular item be brought to Commissioners Court. Excuse
So
me,
we have the money.
for discussion, yes.
Okay, so the next step is if there's a,
Put an
cons-
action
yeah, if there's a
item for the
consensus,
next
then,
meeting.
yeah, bring an action item to us at the next meeting with explaining the funding source. And then you can start now, I would assume, letting all the department heads and elected officials know.
Do you
the
think we
ones
need
that
to
are not.
workshop it and bring everyone in?
If you want to, yeah. I mean,
That takes a lot of time.
if there's, I guess if there's objections, but I don't know what the workshops would, I mean, we can. I'm just not sure what we're going to gather from it, other than say it's a great idea, or no, we don't want to be on it. I think Commissioner Garza said, no, let's assume that everyone is going to participate, and those that cannot participate, then I think they need to present to the court as to why they cannot participate.
Yeah, my only concern is that I want to see the list of the components for that price and make sure we need to buy every single one of them. I think we need to have a little discussion on that also.
Right, I'll bring it back to Commissioners Court as an action item for the next meeting, and then we can start moving forward
Okay,
with this plan.
let's do that.
I think we've made some valuable inroads, and we received a lot of information, a lot of the benefits, and we'll move forward and bring it back to Commissioners Court.
Just real quick, there's a
Thank
couple
you.
of, there's a few department heads here, and I think at least I've seen at least one countywide elected official. Is there any, would y'all like to say something now and maybe express a concern or say you're on board? Judge Cano? No problem with you. Tony? You're already on board, right? Okay, all right.
You know, the only thing is, would it be premature that you send out something from your department, Martha, saying a discussion occurred at Commissioners Court meeting today? There appears to be consensus to move into the direction where all departments in the county will be asked to join the Cronus reporting system. If there's any issues, you know, maybe in 2 weeks at our next meeting, they can present themselves.
And just make sure, Martha, that you explain to law enforcement how they'll be able to do it without having to go physically clock in somewhere.
And phase it in, you know, it's not gonna be like tomorrow, we're gonna just.
Right.
Yes, that'll be something that, it'll be phased in, not just from one day to the next, but I agree, it's a good
On
idea
the-
to send it out and give
Yeah,
them
we-
the option to come to the court and express any concerns.
I think
they
a
may have.
10-year phase-in is long enough.
Well, we've been talking about this for 10 years, okay? At least in
Exactly.
South
But
Bend.
I think the message has to be, we're doing this, not we want you to participate.
Right.
It's like, you participate, or the money we're losing, we're gonna take it from your department somehow.
Right.
They just shared something with me that was kind of interesting. I mean, we have to pay everybody if they work, but maybe we could delay their pay by a week if they don't report with Kronos.
Well, then you're talking about having a one-shot payment deferral.
You know,
That's-
I was just talking with them, and they said, you know, for individuals that weren't on Kronos in our system, we just delayed their pay.
Okay. Well, let's continue discussing. I'm not,
Let's assume they're all gonna
yeah, let's
show
assume
up.
they're all, we start.
Judge, real quick on this enforcement question, that's really a policy thing. It's a employee disciplinary matter. If they're not complying, then you write them up and you give them warnings and then you proceed accordingly.
It's amazing how quickly those timesheets come to your office, right when, yeah, that's when the check is not done.
Good morning, Commissioners. Judge, I'm Sonia, and I work for Payroll Department. This system doesn't only help the employer, it helps the employee because it generates a report that the timekeeper can give the employee on a monthly basis and give them their balances. So the employee knows how much vacation, comp time, sick leave that they have. So, you know, it helps the department a lot.
Let me ask you, Sonia, on the pay stub that we get, on there it has some numbers related to sick leave and
Correct.
all that. And I hate to put you on the spot, but how accurate is the information on those check stubs that every employee gets?
100%, Judge.
Nah, I don't think so.
As accurate as you filled out.
This is one of our biggest issues with our employees. The budget is from October through September, so, you know, we budget the sick leave, the vacation. We request, at the end of the fiscal year, we request a balance for all the employees from the county. So that is in turn given to the auditors for financial purposes. The vacation time vacation and sick leave time is accurate up until the 5 years, which is mandated on our county policy. That's when we start having issues because we start accruing our vacation and sick leave 6.67, 80 hours a year, for the first 5 years. And then it starts changing, the accrual on vacation starts changing, so then we have problems with the vacation. Our check stubs are not correct if an employee is working for the county more than 5 years.
So I guess it's not accurate.
No.
That's what I thought.
It's
Okay.
not.
Any follow-up questions?
Well, with Kronos, it would be accurate though, right? Yes. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? I'm sorry?
I was going to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing that when in our discovery, what we found on your leave, currently not all of your leave is being calculated on the Kronos system because not all of your employees are on there. So your leave on the check stub is only as accurate as the last posting of your absences. The employees that are on the Kronos system that we're calculating their leave for, that's real-time calculations. So at any given time, if you had that function set up on your clock, they would be able to go up and see what are my leave balances. Today, that's not available, I don't believe. So it's just that not everyone is actually utilizing that functionality because they're not on the Kronos system.
And that would apply to everyone with the exception of an elected official. And the reason for that is because the elected official's compensation is locked in once a year. And if they should, let's say, lose an election, so in the middle of the year, they're gone, they cannot recover sick days and leave about, all that whatever it is that they've got. So that's the exception to the rule. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Move to acknowledge.
Moved by Commissioner Garza to acknowledge, second by Commissioner Sanchez. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you all. On the consent, I've got a few items that I don't need to pull out, with the exception of item W. regarding the rural burn permits. I want to talk about that. And then I asked Dilby to make a correction on the coffee vending machine contract, which is double G, which was just changing the word from net sales to gross sales net of sales tax. And then on the travel, just a question, Marta, on the travel, when someone told me, someone told me that adjustment is made when someone travels and they've got meals that are being furnished at the conference, yet that they're asking for meals for the time that they're out. How do you go back and reconcile that number? Do they bring you back the brochure? They bring you back something, or how do you reconcile that number?
We get the brochure or the agenda of the actual conference that they're attending, and if there is a meal provided, then that.
But do you do it after, or do you do it before? Because you're advancing the money.
If we have it before, then we will make the correction before they get their advance. When they come back, if for some reason we don't get the agenda or their flyer, we will request it afterwards when they're doing their final accounting, and at that point, we will ask them to return the money.
Because on the agenda, we've got several travel where there are meals included in the conference, yet we're paying them for assuming that they have no meals at the conference.
Yes, that correction is made either before they get the advance or upon their return.
Okay, so we approve it, but you're gonna go back and check to make sure that.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
And on their travel advance, their expense claim form that they turn in where they're accounting for their travel, it is an official notarized document, so they are required.
So they need to tell you, hey, lunch was provided, so you take out. I noticed the health department had some travel items, and what they did was they actually charged a breakfast, no lunch, and a dinner because there was a lunch that was provided. Pretty much everybody else was just across the board, 3 meals a day, even though there was some lunches being provided. That was the only question. I don't want to pull them out necessarily, but the same issue applied to all of them.
Correct. We make those corrections either before they get their advance or upon their return.
Okay, commissioners, any other items?
Yeah, can I say one thing,
Yes, sir.
Pete? There were some items on there also that have already happened, have already occurred. Why are we acknowledging or approving these after the fact? Shouldn't there be some kind of discretion with your department or your office to say, if you're going to here to Rio Grande, 100 miles for a day conference to Westlaco or McAllen or wherever, it should be allowed without, since it's back and forth the same day.
Those probably, one, require the use of a county vehicle or have registration fees, or they're asking for a meal expense.
But after the fact?
Yes. That's why it's a reimbursement.
Okay.
On 3L, if we can table that, please.
I have a 3L tabled. Anything else, commissioners?
I have a question on double H.
Double H? H as in Harry?
Yes.
I have one question that can be answered
Okay,
real quick.
I'm going to pull out. Okay.
On double V, are you going as a commissioner?
On double V.
Double V?
Yes. Well, Judge Nelson was going to go to this, but he's in the middle of an election, and that's during the election that they start. And I had talked to him about looking into starting a mental health court, and this conference is on drugs and mental health.
Which one's that one?
Double V.
Triple V.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Triple V.
Triple V.
Okay.
So he asked me if I would attend in his place, and this is using their drug court grant funds.
Okay.
And I haven't confirmed that I can go for sure. I'm going to try to go, but I had approached him about looking into starting a mental health court because of all the cuts we got in mental health from the state. And he said that this conference talks about the drug court and mental health, so that would be a good one to go to, and especially since he couldn't go. So
Okay.
he asked me to go to that.
No problem.
Okay, Commissioner, on double H, let's go ahead and talk about that.
I wanted to ask Pete, when we approved this contract with the Sylvia Rodriguez, how soon are we going to go in there, before she brings in all her new stuff, how soon can we get either Marcelino, whoever's going to do the improvements to the actual coffee bar, how soon can we expect they're going to do that? Because I know we had set aside some money for that.
Yeah, as far as any renovations, those can be scheduled at any time. I believe there was some equipment that was going to have to be purchased I would have to check with Marcelino. I'm not sure if there's a lead time in ordering that equipment or not. But as far as any remodeling that's needed, we can do that rather quick. But I'll get with Marcelino, see if there's a lead time on that equipment, or if that equipment is generally available, then, we can do that right away.
And what kind of equipment are you talking about?
I believe there's a couple of appliances that.
Oh, she's going to provide all of that.
Okay.
She's going to provide her own appliances.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm not sure if there's a lead time in them ordering that, or they
To
have them
install it?
available. Right.
Okay.
I don't know that the hood vent is part of that,
No, it wasn't.
and I don't know if the county's doing it. One of the questions I had on the appliances is, this is a long-term contract, and that's why she's agreeing to provide appliances, but I didn't see anything in there about a requirement to replace them if they become not up to standard.
down?
I mean, if 4 years in, they break down, I don't know, I didn't see anything in there that required her to have to replace the equipment.
Speaking of the microphone, Dill.
It's in there. Let me just find it for you real quick. It should be 2G. And I'm reading off, I had made a couple of changes, but basically it's in 2G, I think that's where it covers where will replace the equipment if they're destroyed or injured or damaged in any way.
Okay, I didn't know if that language would be enough for her to be required to replace if the stuff's just getting old.
Okay, I could add that if you, this is for 10 years, so I mean, I could add something if you want me to add.
Just to make sure that she's gonna, keep it in good working condition, because if you have a bad fryer or something, that electrical could affect the whole building.
Well, and I think, and also, if you look at F, that she's responsible for the care and maintenance of the equipment. And maybe that's probably where I can put in there, and the obligation to replace any that just is not working properly.
Okay, well, F says the county won't be responsible,
Yeah,
but it doesn't say that she has to be. So maybe we could change that language a little bit.
All right, I can do that.
There's one more issue, the item before, which is double G, on the vending machines for the coffee vending machines. There's a little bit of a conflict at the main courthouse because the contract for Ms. Rodriguez, we're including soft drink machines and basically all the soft drinks for that building where she operates, but the coffee machine should probably be included with that. And now, are you going to put this other coffee company in the same building or allow it? I wouldn't think that would be right. Not there.
Isn't the concession
No.
only in her area?
It's only in her area, and in
I
fact,
think it's
if you look-
specific
if you
in the
look at-
contract that it's only to her
It's
area.
only in her area.
Yeah, but if you're at, we've already asked her to put all these, maybe a $10,000 investment, and you let them put other coffee machines throughout the building, it's taken away from her concession. It's kind of like having a lawyer on every floor. You can see.
You have that right
Yeah,
now.
coming down to see you, they go, any one of the floors. I think it's a little bit of a conflict by making her spend all this money and then say, well, we're going to compete against you on floor 2 and 3 with other people's machines.
Well, do we have any other vending machines in that building?
No.
Yeah, well,
We have
the district clerk has one in their office for their break room.
Yeah?
And,
Commissioner, and it's specifically on states that, the court can have other soft drink vending machines and candy chip vending machines. It's in the contract.
that's in the contract.
In
And I think
that
she
area.
understands that. The requirement for her to spend money and do all that, we're not forcing her, in exchange for her doing that, where the county doesn't have to provide all that equipment, is we're giving her a longer-term
No,
contract.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying it gives her, I think it's a little bit unfair to have other competition within the same building when it's not a huge market to begin with as far as dollar-wise of money coming in. If it was, 10,000 people working the building, said no problem, put them all over the place. But you have a few hundred. It's just my opinion.
Sure. No, but she doesn't provide this type of coffee, right?
I
This
don't
is
know.
like
I don't know
a
what she does.
This is like
premium coffee type, David?
Yeah, that RFP was specific to 3 buildings, and from what I understand, it's a vending machine that offers a premium type coffee where
It's like gourmet
anybody,
coffee.
right, where anybody can go in and at any point, just press a button like they would with a Coke machine and select the type of coffee that they want. And so the plan would be to start at the judicial courthouse and then carry that through to the other 2 buildings. I think one's in San Benito and the other one's in Harlingen.
The other thing is her operations are only till 4. The courthouse is open till 5. So it gives the ability of someone that's working till 5 or even after 5, the ability to get a cup of
At
coffee.
any time or wherever they're at in the courthouse, if they want to go to the coffee shop.
Okay,
or to the
any-
vending machine.
Anything else, Commissioners?
I've got
pull
a
out
few
some things,
items.
Okay.
Item B. And you want me to give you the list, or just we go one by one?
Yeah, let's go. Let's
Okay.
go with item B.
Item B, the only thing I saw in there, Dilbia, on the contract, there's limitations on liability on their contract, page 2 of 2 to 100,000. It limits consequential damages. It talks about statute of limitations. There's exclusions on the indemnification. And they're doing foundation work. And if the foundation somehow is bad and eventually causes us, the testing on the foundation.
The geotechnical.
Right. And so if something comes out bad, and, I mean, I don't anticipate it, but if we were to have to, knock the building down and start over, 100,000 is not going to pay for that. So I don't know if we should agree to that. It's number 13 in their contract.
Well, let me ask you, what do you want to do with that one?
Do you want me to go back to them and with something, a higher amount? 'Cause
Well, or
usually-
just exclude that paragraph. In other words, don't give them the ability to limit their exposure to 100,000. Don't let them say that they're not on paragraph 14. Don't let them say that that they're not going to be responsible for consequential damages. Don't let them give exclusions on the indemnification clause on number 16. And then on number 19, they're basically throwing in statute of limitations that wouldn't apply to
Well,
county.
no, I think what they're doing on 19 is they're setting the date when it starts, the statute of, because usually they'll say like substantial completion or something, but this one, on number 19, what they're doing is saying this is when, for purposes of the cause of action started, will happen, this is the date it starts.
But does statute of limitations apply to the county government?
Mhm.
Okay, because I had understood from Bruce that they didn't.
Let's give us, let me suggest that we table this and let's take a good long look at it here.
Okay.
All right, and we'll
You
just,
know,
we'll
the
table
only
that.
thing is, though, that, it delays, because they're waiting for these results. And if we're gonna table it for 2 weeks.
Or we can approve it subject to legal's review and change.
I would rather do that, if possible, because they're, right,
And I don't have a problem approving it subject to legal making those changes.
Okay.
Well, subject to legal, I'll second that motion.
Are we tabling it, or are you approving?
No, we're gonna go ahead and approve it.
I would approve it subject to legal making the changes.
Second.
Okay, well, we can just do them all at the same time, because
Okay.
you're okay with it now,
Yes.
okay? Next.
Not if the other one is not okay,
Which one?
whichever.
No, we'll be fine.
The next one that I was looking at is item 3C. And the only thing is I noticed that on the coverage, the insurance they provided is just for the actual plane. There's no insurance here for their operations, and I don't know if that was something you noticed or not, but the coverage sheet that they gave us is for the airplane that's sitting in a hangar in California if it's damaged.
Yeah, these are standard agreements that we use for all the companies. They probably didn't submit it yet, but before they fly out, they have to submit everything according to the contract.
Okay, and I just saw that because I noticed that the insurance was to cover the plane if it's sitting in a hangar in California, not if it flies and wrecks into something or causes damage.
Yeah, a lot of
to the
times we
airport.
don't get the backup before.
Okay, so we're okay. Next.
The next one I had was 3N. And the question I had on that is, this is an old contract from 2006 that we're renewing, and it's the AT&T, I guess, connectivity service.
Yes, sir.
Have we gone out and looked to see if there's any cheaper way of doing this?
Yes, that's one of the things we're going to end up doing, excuse me, after today's agenda gets passed. That building is too big. It's got too much going on for me to try to roll it into something different right now. We already approved the first two, which was from this building to ours, the sheriff's department to ours. This is the last one of the three.
Okay.
Same one, the same contract.
It's the same contract.
Okay. Well, because I thought in 2006, you know, a lot has changed, fiber optics, other companies in the business for competitive reasons, but.
So are we okay?
We're all right with this?
Yes, sir. That's part of my
Okay.
5-year plan to
Okay,
reevaluate.
thank you, Joe.
all those.
Next.
Okay. The next one I had was 3Q. And the question I had on this one, is there someone here from Precinct 4, Constable? I had a question on this one, on the fee amounts that y'all attached here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 cases that y'all didn't, I don't know if you didn't charge or you didn't collect, but the first 5 show a $60 fee amount, and then the last 9 don't have an amount. And I was wondering,
On that one, I'm not here to represent on that one, sir. They did not make me aware that that was going to be an issue. I'm on the one here for ZZ. On
okay,
on the agenda.
so you can't answer that.
No,
I guess on those, and those are good points, but if we're here to approve the report, do you want to come back or ask maybe another question directly of them and say, you know what, you didn't collect it? Because if we're just to approve the report as presented, should we go into details to why $60 wasn't collected or not reported? Is that what the court wants to do on all these reports, on some of these reports?
No, I don't.
They're good points, but I just don't know if that would disqualify us from approving this report. I don't know.
Sanchez.
Who's judge? Which Judge Sanchez? Where is he?
Judge Sanchez.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Judge now? Oh.
I was a judge.
Once a judge, always a judge.
If you want, Commissioner, what I can do is I can get with, because our secretary is the one that puts those reports together, and I can get an answer for you on that, sir.
Okay, well, I was just curious because I saw a lot of blanks. Commissioner, do you have
I
a
was
question?
going to ask you, in looking at the type of service, is the charge usually the same, $60 across the board, or does it vary for different services?
It can vary. Certain writs have a higher cost. There's some that cost $200 to serve, writs of execution and sequestration. But here, I was just wondering why we didn't collect this, or if it was collected and not reported. I just saw a bunch of blanks, and it made me wonder, well, you know, did we get indigency affidavits or something on all these? It seemed like a lot for a few cases that were dealt with.
In reference to those affidavits, I don't know if they have them, but there are some that are waived for the fee. But that would have to come through from the constable's office to the court.
Right, and I didn't see that here. That's why I was asking about it.
And I think the question would be whether the report is, not whether they collected or not, but whether that report is accurate. Whether, did you collect but did not get filled in? Which would be, I think, that would be an appropriate reason to not approve the report if the report in itself was inaccurate.
Correct, because if it's not showing anything on there, then it should equal out with the judge's office, because to their report as well.
Correct.
It should balance out together.
Okay.
Okay, well, I just...
But I can-
Martha, did you take a look at these? Do you balance the reports from the constable and the JP courts?
Yes, these reports, when they're received from the constable's office, they are usually signed on and it says subject to audit or subject to review. So they are pending our review.
So you
Because
haven't
we have to
reviewed it
get,
yet?
no, we have to get the JP's report and reconcile their collections before we can, properly, make sure everything is reported correctly.
Okay,
And again, it could be that these fees are actually being collected by the JP. So he will report them on his report, and they're not physically, well, I don't speak for the constable, that they're not physically collected by the JP office.
okay. That was the only question I had on there.
Anything else?
We're going to talk about W, correct?
Yes, we're going to pull that one out.
Okay, and then a 3X,
Okay?
I had a question on this, Yvette. These monies, what are they being used for?
The family planning grant, it's about 120,000, I believe, and half of it does go for family planning supplies, the contraceptives part, and then the other half will be used to offset some of the staffing salaries.
But we're not going to be doing billboards or anything on promoting safe sex with this money?
Well, we do promote safe sex, but anything that's billboard related, we do bring before the court for their approval.
Okay. And what are the differences in this as opposed to previous years?
In the past, there was a funding pool that Cameron County would apply for, and it was a grant. That grant is no longer available. It was through the Texas Department of State Health Services. So just across the board, statewide, that grant went away. So the only grant that the State Health Department has available is this Title X grant. So either Cameron County accepts this family planning Title X grant, or that part goes away for Cameron County. And it is a significant change. There are some mandates in that grant that we have not had to provide in the past with the different pool of money. So this is a different grant with different requirements.
And what are the main differences, if you can kind of point them out for us?
Okay, the one we put as number one, the primary change that we thought was significant was in the past, adolescents had to get parental consent at our clinics. With this family planning grant, we cannot mandate parental consent anymore. So that was a huge change for us. Also in the past, income was a verbal declaration. Now we're going to ask more for written type of information. The drug pricing that was available to pay for the contraceptives, there's a different funding pool that has been opened up to the state. So the contraceptives will probably be a third less this year than they have in past years when we would use a different state pool of pharmaceuticals. This grant does require more community participation, so we're going to have to establish a committee for education. We'll have to have another committee for the materials that are going to get to review the materials in the education that does get distributed. So it is very community participation oriented. So that is a different change for us as well, because in the past the decisions were made within the department, but now we're going to have to, if the court accepts this family planning grant contract, then we will have to establish a committee and get their input.
Okay.
On all of our operations in family planning.
Anything else?
I don't have any more questions on that.
Okay.
I have other items that I have questions on.
I feel like Columbo. Just one more thing.
I'm the voice of the people. Let's see, double H we already talked about. I had some double S.
Who's going to address double S? That's the...
They want to reject the
rejecting the
bid.
bids for the pickup truck. Know what I mean?
They want a car instead of a truck.
Oh, okay.
double S, the rejection of the pickup truck. There was a bid that was done, but I have a letter here from Constable Merced Burnias, where he is sending Mike an email saying that he wants to reject the bid and he wants to order a Dodge Charger instead. We have a bid that went out that was for 5 patrol cars back in January, and we're gonna include that Dodge Charger.
What, is the cost the same?
The cost for the Charger, no, I believe it's lower than the. Than the
Okay.
pickup. Mhm.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, and he had emailed
Yes.
that letter to all of us. And I don't know if
Anything else?
Double Z.
Thank you.
Double Z is,
That's Mr. Betancourt.
yes. The question I had on this, I noticed the names on here. All of these are mental health transport officers, correct?
There's 2 of them that are mental health transports.
Okay, and how many mental health transport officers do we have in
3.
serving Harlingen?
3. There's a
Okay.
total of 3 in our department.
Okay, and so I guess my concern was if they're gone, are we going to be able to
Yes, sir. it is-
continue that service?
Yes, sir, it is covered.
Okay. And then the only other thing is what the judge mentioned earlier. I think meals were requested on this one. And if you look at the rooms, meals, and expenses, it talks about how breakfast and lunch are provided. Is that what you were talking about, Judge?
Yeah, there were several, and I think we've already addressed that in terms of how they're going to reconcile to the auditor's office. There were several of the travel items that had that, where some meals were provided, but the traveler was requesting reimbursement of all the meals. So that's what Marta addressed a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank
Right?
you.
Okay. Anything else?
The other question I had is triple B.
Okay.
Is there anyone here from the DA's office on triple B?
You're not going to Las Vegas, are you, Sam? It's not you. All right.
Sam, my question was, first, is this necessary? And then 2, is there a cheaper airfare that we can get than the 930?
Okay, well, I really can't answer the cheaper airfare question. The first question, yes, it is necessary.
Okay.
This is HIDA's big meeting, he's a presenter, and they budgeted out of the HIDA funds to do it.
Okay, so this is not county money then? Because,
Grant money. I asked that question when it rolled across my desk because I knew you'd ask it.
okay, that's fine. I just, to me, I saw 930, and someone's flying to DC for a lot cheaper, I think, than the 930. I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot, but.
Okay, anything else? So you're okay. All right, next.
I'm cool with that. Triple H. It says they're using a county vehicle, but they're asking for mileage.
That one also had the meal issue. Who's addressing that one? If no one is here to address it, you know, if the commissioner's questions are not answered, we're going to recommend that it be tabled. It's not until April anyway, but someone needs to be here to answer those questions.
I'd move to table Triple H.
Second.
Okay.
And then, let's see here. The last question I had was Triple L, Health Department. This is the DC conference. Round trip, $600. But this is $1,200 cost, and is this necessary travel?
This is the only conference that's like on a national level conference. So for us, we believe that it is a necessary travel. The animal rights groups, we work with different ones, and they're very eager for us to participate in this conference specifically. So we believe, we've never participated in this national conference, so we believe that there's probably good information for us that we might be able to implement locally.
Okay, and that's my only concern. I mean, if someone's going to go to this, but we're not actually going to implement any type of adoption of pets, and, you know, if we're not going to go through with it, then I don't know that we should spend this.
Right.
But if there's going to be an actual program put in place, and I agree, we need to put a program in place and get with some of these rights groups, animal rights groups to participate. But again, if we're not going to follow through, then to me, this is kind of a cost that we're wasting.
Well, we're hoping to bring back information that will improve our animal control program, and that's the whole goal of sending one person.
Okay, and because this talks about, figuring out ways to do pet adoption and all of that. And right now, I mean, how many would you say from the animals that are brought to the shelter that actually get adopted versus euthanized?
They are minimal as compared, but if you're looking for a number, I would think that maybe 50 out of 2,500, 50 are adopted, maybe.
Wow, okay.
And is that because people just happen to come over to your facility and just happen to be looking to adopt? Or is it something that we go out and we promote? And
I think that the biggest barrier is that we have 10 kennels, 3 are for quarantine, 2 are for the adoption, and 5 are for the general population. So those 2 kennels can only house 1 dog apiece. So we really have a space limitation when it comes to the adoption. And a dog that we see that we believe is in good health and would make a good family pet, we might keep him a couple of weeks, but keeping that dog a couple of weeks in that 1 kennel prevents another dog from coming in to be adopted.
And how do you choose?
We go with
racial profiling?
The cutest puppy?
we depend on our animal control officers.
Well, I know that, I can attest to the fact that there's a real cute dog that is held longer than.
A healthier dog, Commissioner.
Or a healthier
Well,
dog.
we try, but we don't put them through a veterinarian or anything like that,
The ones that are
so
more
it's a
likely to
visual.
get adopted.
Obviously, a good argument for a new animal shelter. Thank you.
Build a bigger hotel. But I mean, as long as there's going to be a plan put in place, I could see the benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That's all
anything
the
else?
questions I had.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve the consent item?
W?
Yeah, with the exception of W.
You don't want to discuss it?
Yeah, but let me approve everything, then we'll go back to W.
So
Let
moved.
let me approve all the consent items with those, except for those that had subject to legal, and then those that were tabled through our discussions. Moved by Commissioner Benavides. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Garza. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, item carries. Item W, burn permit issues. Humberto. Item W, consideration approval of modification to the fire marshal fee structure as it relates to rural burn permits.
Commissioners, the burn permits, there's 2 sides to the burn permits, so we've gotten complaints, I'm sure you guys have also, I'm sure the commissioners have also gotten some concerned citizens about the burn permit fees. Again, there's 2 different sides to it. There's a positive side that it helps us as emergency management and fire marshal service control the fires within our county to a certain extent. The downside to it is there's also a lot of accumulation of debris that's going on because people either can't afford the $25 or they just don't want to spend the $25. So we put it on the agenda just so that the commissioners can discuss it and see if y'all could voice your all's concerns with this.
Well, I'd move to eliminate the $20 fee,
I second the $25.
the $25 fee.
I would second that, but I would also like to leave the caveat in there that they do get a permit. Just eliminate the charge for it.
Right, just the fee.
Because what's occurring is we have numerous folks that are not calling in a burn because they're not going to pay $25, but they're burning, and they're everywhere. So I would rather have a system where they can call, get a permit, fill it out, tell you when the burn is going to be, and allow it to occur with the knowledge of the department versus having a lot of illegal fires going on all over the county.
I totally agree. I'm from the country, and I'm from Rio Hondo, and I kind of, grew up burning branches and stuff as it accumulated. My only concern is the copies that we showed you is this little manual that we printed out. That represents 1 week of people that are trying to burn everything from buckets to ice chests to just about anything that you can burn, they try to burn it. So
Was that with all these pictures permitted?
that was, those were not permitted.
You know, that's an enforcement issue, it's not a permit
What we
issue.
did was we had them remove it, and then we issued the permit. Again, there's two sides to it. We can remove the $25 fee, which means that we cannot go out and do the site inspections. Not doing the site inspections will translate into.
And why can't you not do a site inspection without the $25 fee?
What happens if we do site inspections is up to date. For example, historically, we give away free permits. We, at the Office of Emergency Management, have over 100 permits to process a day, which does paralyze emergency management planning. It does paralyze, we don't have 14, 15 people downstairs. It's just a handful of us. When we have 100 permits coming in through the telephones every day, that means we have to fax, scan, email, confirm that they received these burn permits.
But, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can't we do that like through the local constable's office in each precinct, have them get the permits there with y'all's approval?
When I started with the constable's office years ago, that's the way we used to do it, is that the person would go up to the constable's office and request a burn permit. The constables would then issue out the burn permit free of charge. It worked well back then. I don't see why it wouldn't work now.
Why did it change? Is it?
I think they just wanted to put the powers back into the fire marshal to regulate these things.
Well, but
It did
I mean,
work, though.
them giving out a permit doesn't stop you from sending one of your guys to just randomly check any one of these burns, does it?
Correct. If we throw it back into the constable's hands to
When did that change?
I would say around 2005.
Okay, so in
2004,
2005 is when they stopped going to the constable for permits?
Correct.
Okay.
So it did work back then. It
You know,
took
the
it off of
constables
us.
are usually the ones that call and tell me, hey, there's a fire going on, and, because they're the ones that are driving.
They're the
around.
first line of defense there. I mean,
Correct.
they're the first call.
It did work, as long as we all know that by giving free permits, anything goes when they burn it. No one's going to be inspecting, unless we do, like Commissioner Sanchez said, we do an audit, which would be a good idea, is to just randomly pick, if the constables can relate to us who's burning and where, we can do an audit.
Or can't you train the constables so that they themselves, let's say precinct 4 gets 30 permits, and they themselves can go out and spot check while they're patrolling,
Yeah.
you know, what are you going to burn? And if they see illegal burning, they can cite them right then and there, right?
Correct. The constables already know pretty much. I think all the deputies know that you're not supposed to be burning trash or construction material. Everybody's educated on that already across the board.
Mr. Barrera, excuse me, I have a concern. You know, we have the rural trash collection that it also includes picking up brush, I believe, once a month. And I think, I don't know what the real solution is, but by us issuing these burn permits, people are circumventing having to sign up with the approved vendor, yeah. And so then this is starting to happen all over again. I mean, that's one concern that I have, you know, because I may be living next door to somebody and I pay so I can get all of this, you know, trash collected and brush collected and whatnot. And yet my neighbor is being allowed to go ahead and burn it to circumvent having to pay for it.
Correct, and that's why there's two sides to this. I mean, there's pros and cons to it. We've gotten phone calls as to, hey, you guys are just doing this because you want to charge us money and you're using it as a moneymaker. We are absolutely not making any money on this. We're breaking even, if anything, because with fuel the way it is and going and doing a site inspection at every site, we're not making money off of this. We are, again, you know, we've gotten some rain, but we were in a really bad drought when this started. And that's why we implemented it, and it did help. I mean, you can talk to any fire chief around the county, and they'll tell you that it did help, but it is causing some other problems.
What helped? The fee? Charging the fee?
Well, you limit the amount of people that can burn.
Legally.
Legally. So you put a fee, and people, you know, they just don't want to spend that money to burn.
Let me make a comment.
Or they get trash service. They say, well, instead of paying the $25, I might as well just pay for trash service. So there's two sides to it.
I can see both sides, but You know, we have an inspection, administrative, and enforcement cost to the county. And as a fiduciary responsibility of this county is to try to abate as much of those costs as possible. In other words, minimize what we have. I work in this building every day, and you go down to the basement when there's no burn ban, and they're lined up in the basement. I don't know what even comes in over the phone, but it's incredible how many people and how much time it takes. His office, there's 4 of them in there, and they're all doing permits. So it's taken away from their deal. There's nothing wrong with covering our cost. If you want to reduce the fee, that's one thing, but just to eliminate it completely, it causes an undue burden on our budget and his office, as it's a cost of doing, there is a cost of doing business for the county.
I understand that. One of the things that I saw in asking the question about the constables is each of our constables has a secretary that's there from 8 to 5.
Correct.
That phone doesn't ring nonstop. I mean, I've observed a lot of these offices where you get occasional phone calls, but there's plenty of time that county employee is getting paid to be there anyway, that could keep track of taking these permits, inputting them in, so that you have electronically everything that's going on, that will cut down on your expense, you know, for having to hand out permits and being the only office in the county. Right. So it's basically being a little more efficient with the other services out there. But to me, and you tell me what you think's better, to have 90 people get permits, pay for them, and have legal burns, and 400 people burning illegally, or to have 500 people burning legally, even though you don't go and check every single burn site.
Well, what I can say, Commissioners, although we have implemented the $25 fees and it has helped, I wouldn't recommend doing it for free because it does paralyze our office. I mean, when I say paralyze, I mean we're talking about out of 30 days, 15 of those days, 8 to 5, we are processing the paperwork. So I wouldn't recommend doing it for free if it continues to be monitored by our office. But I'm all in favor of that. If you want to throw it back to the constables that do have 50 deputies to help with the project, where it doesn't eat up the budget of emergency management, then I'll go either way. I mean,
Then a free permit's all right?
No. The thing with the free permit, again, is you're going to have a lot more fires. But
You know, you
there's
need
two
to
sides to it.
understand, I don't think it's an issue of a free permit, you know. We keep throwing that out. People are already paying taxes.
Right.
There's certain services that they should be entitled to for being a resident of the county.
Well, and I agree,
You know,
Commissioner, but
I mean, we are feeing people to death, man. We're finding ways. It doesn't matter if it's in the JP's office, in the clerk's office, in the county clerk's district. You know, I mean, everything is feed to death nowadays.
well, my recommendation, again, is I don't think we could afford to do it for free, to do it right. If we want to do it for free and pretend that they're not going to burn plastic and shingles, that's fine.
Well,
I would
you know,
suggest
you're
maybe the
making a
constable's
representation, Humberto, that no one is burning plastic, no one is burning shingles. That's the representation you're giving me.
Right.
I differ with you. I can take you to 10 sites where there were illegal burns in the last month in which things were burned illegally without a permit.
Well, and again, Commissioner, it's really your all's choice, but
You know?
it's your all's ultimate decision. But I mean, we charge for building permits, we charge for inspections, we charge for everything else.
Yeah, fee
And
or
to-
no fee.
And to single out emergency management for charging
Fee or
a
no fee,
one-time
it's going to
fee.
continue.
Well,
we're not
Excuse me,
giving away
Commissioner.
building permits. I mean.
Fee of no fee, it's going to continue. If you want to keep tax rates low, if you want to be able to keep good qualified employees, if you ever want to give these employees a raise, we have to have fee structures in place. Property taxes don't cover everything we do, unfortunately. It would if our tax rate was 20 cents higher, but it's not. So a minimal fee, at least to cover the cost of doing the operation. I think the constable idea is a great idea, but I still think you should charge, even if it's $10, and you have, at least you know where the burns are being held. The illegal, you're not going to stop drugs, you're not going to stop people from speeding, you're not going to stop anything. There's laws against it.
You know, usually,
People do it.
Well, how many complaints have you gotten from people on the burn fee?
None.
Right, and your precinct's all within the city. People in the city don't burn. I get inundated with complaints about that $25 burn permit fee. I mean, I'm getting complaints left and right. And I understand, I live out in the country, and Commissioner Benavides, just to kind of give you just another side to the story you brought up, I have the rural trash collection, but they come once a month to pick up the brush. And you have to put that brush out by the road. Well, when I leave my driveway to go onto the onto the farm road that I live on, in order to see down the road to be able to clear, I would not be able to have that brush there. So I can't trim brush and pile it up there. So I have a pile in the back of my house, and I'm going to get a burn permit and burn, and if I got to pay. But the question I have is, when you live out in the country, and it might be a matter of just because people don't live out and don't understand, if you have 20 or 30 trees and you trim your trees, you're going to have a large pile. And that's something that no brush collection is going to come and just pick up, because they want you to cut it no longer than 3 feet long, bunched up, piled up. I mean, they want it nice and neat just to come pick it up and take it. And unfortunately, when you live out in the country and you have trees, a lot of times people use tractors and heavy equipment to drag branches and pile them up. And it's not uncommon for you to see, a 30 by 40 pile of brush that's going to get burned. I mean,
Right. No, there's no doubt, Commissioners, there is absolutely no doubt that allowing people to burn helps us out during hurricane season. I mean, that stuff plugs up everything, the debris anyway, the brush. But the constable idea is a good idea, because it's all about being able to survive in my budget, fuel-wise anyway. If we do it for free, we're not going to be doing that great of a service to the county, because although you can't catch them all, and it's true, we have caught a lot of people burning illegally, and they do get cited, we're not going to catch them all, and we'll never catch them all, no matter what plan we have in place.
There's no doubt that precincts 3 and 4 have more rural miles, but I want to tell you, I have 55 miles of rural roads in my area, so we do have some country, even in precinct 2, and we're not getting any calls. 55 miles may not be what you have, but it's enough out there to create a stir if there was a problem with it.
Well, I
think
don't.
Sophie has about the same amount of miles.
I just don't know if, because we're getting calls about the burn fee, the cost, that we should eliminate it altogether. I mean, you get elected to represent, and I agree with Commissioner Hernandez that, we're looking at feeing people to death. You know what? We got complaints when we were making people, have go to the trash collection with the same argument. We already pay taxes. So the fact that someone pays taxes really shouldn't, in my opinion, have even a burden. I mean, I think, yeah, we are feeing, but like I said, we do charge for, building permits. There's a lot of fees that we charge already. We're going to eliminate those because, people already pay taxes. I think the burn permit fee is not a bad idea. If you want to reduce it to $15, maybe getting an annual permit, I don't know, but eliminate altogether, having it free, I think is a disservice. As far as the rural areas, Commissioner Benavides, people have to sign up for this. If there's people out there that are not signed up, well, that's the responsibility of the trash collection company to go seek them out. So I don't know why in your area.
But I found, Judge, that like right before hurricane season, we had several areas where there was a bunch, and it's exactly like what Judge Sanchez said. They had cut a bunch of trees and it was all in the front. So we took the steps to be able to clear all that out. So when we carry it to the landfill, we pay for it. It becomes a burden on the county. But yet, I mean, we have to be proactive during hurricane season to ensure that all the ditches are cleaned out and whatnot. So, I mean, I don't know what the true answer to this.
There was a story yesterday that was done on this cleaning up of these areas in Cameron Park in Commissioner Hernandez's precinct, that people were violating, and they went out and they paid, right?
Correct.
They paid to take their trash to the landfill.
Correct. We had a.
And even though they said, well, we pay taxes, the county should be picking this up.
We had a small operation through the office that we went to Cameron Park and basically told them. I mean, we found people dumping tonnage behind their houses.
Into the Resaca.
Into the Resaca,
Right.
and I think the last math I saw was within 30 days they removed about 4.5 tons of trash from the back of their houses. So it was very effective, and it didn't cost the taxpayers a single
But
dollar.
that was on the enforcement side, right? In other words, clean it up or we're going to cite you.
It was clean it up, or we're gonna open up a criminal case on you, because it's in the tonnage, it's not in the citation side. It's in the illegal dumping side, not necessarily, you know, a bag or two. I mean, we're talking about large amounts of construction material, large amounts of just trash. I mean, lots of trash.
So to me, don't you think the stronger message would be to have your crew spending their time checking on these fires where you've given, you know, 300 permits to go spot check or get with the constable's office to check them, and if they're burning illegally, cite them, so then they get the message, hey, you're going to be allowed to burn branches only, not, you know, construction material or anything else that you shouldn't, and we're watching you. So then people will just like the way they did here, they'll self-police and say, well, you know what, I don't want to get in trouble, I'm going to do it right. But when you charging that fee, if we go to the constable thing, I think we're going to have problems, because I don't know that their offices are set up to take money. I think most of the money transaction happens in the justice courts. And the other thing is, when you charge that fee, are you going to be going out and checking all these?
If we do away with the fee, I don't think we could afford, with our budget and diesel and gas prices, we can't afford to do it to actually drive out to every single location. We would have to just audit, like you said, and do a random check and see if we catch anybody, which in turn results into a citation that then goes, of course, to the JP.
The $6,000 that this report shows is for what time frame? January 9th? That's just in the last 3.5 months, or 3 months, right?
2.5 months.
2.5 months. And really, that money is used to offset the cost of this operation.
We're not.
So if you don't collect a fee, then you're gonna be restricted in term, I think, of how many times you can go out. Look, I don't have a problem, you know, reducing the amount of the permit fee from $25 to, let's say, $15 or $12 or something. But to eliminate it altogether to zero, no. I mean, I just don't think that that's a wise idea. I think it's going to curtail your operation. The constable idea is a good idea, Commissioner, but I think you're right. I don't know if they're equipped to collect money, number one. Number two, how can we enforce them and make them do it? If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Good idea. I think it gives people, you know, a lot more locations to go and try to, you know, get the burn permit fee.
It relieves the stress on your office.
I don't think as a county we would suffer so bad doing it for free if we spread it amongst all the constables.
Yeah, but how can you do that?
Well, we ask them to participate, and if they don't, then budget time, we pick a few officers and give you a few more from there.
Right. The deal here is that we have inspections. We're doing a lot of inspections. We're doing a lot of burn permits. And honestly, if this was to just fall off of the office to do burn permits, that'd be a great thing for us, because we have a lot to focus on, not just typing burn permits all day long. I mean,
when did the burn permit begin? Was it last year sometime?
It began...
2011?
The fee for burn permit.
Yeah, the fee for burn permit.
In January, I believe it was.
It was a consent item that just kind of came through.
Right.
We didn't discuss it. We didn't have this.
It went right.
Oh, right. It just kind of snuck in under the radar.
Right, correct.
And the reason you did it, I know you had some expenses in your office that you needed to cover, right?
Right. Well, we did have some things that were covered. I mean, I think we spent about $4,000 went into fuel, and about $2,000 were left over that we paid a light bar with. Of course, that was done through Ms. Galarza's office.
But I mean, the need you had has been taken care of.
The need we had at that time has been taken care of. But the reason that we placed the fee, the reason we did the fee was because we were in extreme drought. And for those commissioners, I think all of y'all get my text messages. You went from receiving a lot of text messages about I'm going to a fire, we're going to a fire, we're headed to a fire, to practically done. And that's been that's been a result of the burn fee.
That's called rain.
It's called rain, but
wasn't there a fire yesterday or day before?
The frequency of fires have diminished tremendously. How many brush fires or grass fires have you had in the last month?
We haven't had a lot. We have not had a lot of them, but nonetheless, the fire still starts. We have a man at this moment fighting for his life at Brooks Medical Center. 68-year-old man that was severely burned in La Feria. So, you know, when it comes to fires, you guys make the call whether you want to keep the fee or not keep the fee, but it's a serious...
Did he get a permit?
No,
his house caught on fire.
Oh.
So, yeah, but...
Couldn't help it there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question is, do we eliminate the permit? Do we, I mean, the price, do we reduce the fee? Those are, or leave it the way it is?
Why don't we try, Humberto, if we eliminate it, let's say do a 6-month test, get the constables involved, start doing some enforcement, and see how that goes. Because we've already done the other way with permit for 2 months paying. And let's look at the numbers and compare, and then we could always bring it back, 6 months down the road and see, did we have higher incidents, lower incidents? Did we have the constable catch more people burning illegally? Because I'd like to know if you went back to all these places that you denied a permit to see if they burned anyway.
Right, and that's something we don't really do. We don't go back a second time. We just basically ask them to remove it. And, the honor system has proven time and time again to fail. So I would think that they burned it anyway at some point, but I wouldn't be able to confirm that.
So I guess my point is, if we have the constables involved and they give out these permits, they can go, because they're going to know where the permits are that they gave. They can go and check, hey, what are you guys burning? Or, hey, you weren't supposed to burn this, and do the enforcement. And I think that awareness will help curtail a lot of the things that you're trying to stop.
Not all those permits were denied. Some of them, they were instructed to remove the materials, and once they were removed, then the permit was issued.
Oh, okay, because I thought that what was said earlier was that they were all denied.
No, sir.
Okay.
Not all were denied. The other important thing just to keep in mind is that now we're doing 100% inspection when we issue a permit, and that will go away if we rescind this.
Well, that's what's taking up all your time, though.
It is taking our time, but I think it's making it safer. We're looking at the future of Cameron County and the residents that will come after us, that do they want to be living in a polluted environment?
So your
If they're
recommendation,
burning plastics and hazardous chemicals and things they shouldn't burn, things that are in violation of TCEQ, then we're just setting ourselves up for a fall in the future.
But again, you're misrepresenting that, because you're telling me that you issued the permit, you go tell them to take it out of there before they burn it, but you don't verify it.
No, those ones that we issued permits to, they were removed on site. Then they got the permit.
And do you sit there and watch them?
Buckets and stuff were removed. Yes, sir.
Do you stand there while they burn and you don't leave till they're done?
No, we don't do that.
So, like, for instance, in this first picture that you have a cooler there and some construction equipment, you give the permit, they pull the stuff out, you leave. There's nothing to stop them from taking all that lumber and cooler and throwing it back on.
Nothing other than the fact that we've informed them if they burn stuff illegally, it's in the instructions that they can be cited. It's a $300 fine.
Right, but no one goes back and follows up.
I think the
well, but they don't, I mean, look, if you give them that, if you tell them, you give them the documentation, you say, look, if you do this, you're going to be cited. I don't think, for the most part, someone's going to take a chance if they happen to be the one you go back to check and you find that they've burned something they weren't supposed to and risk a $300 fine. I just don't think that. Does it happen? I'm sure it does. But if someone tells me, look, we may come back and look at this, so I'm not going to risk it for that. I don't think look, your recommendation is to what?
My recommendation is two things, is if we do it for free, please take it away from our office and let the constables do it. If we do it if it's going to continue in my office, then my recommendation would be that there's no reason why we couldn't lower the fee a little bit and possibly give an extension. Instead of a 2-week permit, make it a 30-day permit.
And that would be something that may be workable for somebody. Reduce the fee, let's say, to $15 and give them a 30-day permit to burn. I think that's reasonable. Right. But to eliminate it to nothing.
They're both good ideas. If we do it for free, then the situation that occurs when you do it for free is our office kind of gets away from what our primary.
Right now, the permit is for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Would you all? And I'm just throwing this out there to have some a compromise. But would you have a significant issue with making it a 30-day permit and lowering the fee, let's say $15 for 30 days?
No, that wouldn't affect us at all.
Would that be? I mean, could y'all continue providing the service?
And we could still continue to provide the service, but keep in mind and I'm just giving you all angles, when you give them 30 days, that means they can burn 2 or 3 times a month, which then returns back to what Commissioner Sanchez said, is that, they're just going to burn everything.
Well, they're going to burn anyway. I mean, whether it's for free or you charge, if someone's going to violate the law, they're going to do it.
Correct.
there's not a whole lot that we can do about. All I'm trying to do is come up with a consensus where it's not totally free. It gives them a little bit longer time to, where they can burn, and yet we're still charging to offset some of the costs that are being incurred by your department.
The big problem is that those of us that have larger areas of the county that are unincorporated end up with issues. We end up with drainage issues. We end up with rodent issues, unsightly health issues, because guess where folks that don't get a permit and don't burn illegally put their stuff?
County roads.
County roadway right away, okay? What does that lead to? You have issues other than like sight when you turn. You have issues with rodents. You have issues with health issues.
But we've always had that.
We've always had
We've always had those problems. So this is nothing new.
Well, it gets worse when you can't burn.
No, and I don't think that's what
Okay.
they're saying. I think what they're saying is, hey, let's,
I mean, and how does emergency management end up with burn permits?
Through the fire
Fire
marshal
marshal.
service, sir. That's part of
Okay.
our office.
I mean, we ought to be preparing for the next storm.
I agree, and that's why if you take it off my hands, we could prepare a lot faster, because it ties, when we do it for free, we're getting over 100 permits a day.
well, why couldn't we do this? Why don't, and I'm just for the sake of discussion, ask the constables, and I don't know if they do this now, if they see, because they're out there all the time patrolling, if they see a brush fire, could they just stop and ask for the permit? Produce a permit? That way they don't have to be taking money, but they are part of the enforcement side?
Actually, the sheriff's office does a very good job of doing that. Whenever there's a fire, I'll get a phone call from a deputy or dispatch saying, hey, somebody got a citation over in Cameron Park, or someone got a citation over on White Ranch Road. We do get that. They're doing that already. I mean, across the board, all the constables and sheriff's deputies, they know to keep an eye out for illegal burning. That's already being done.
Okay, well, I have a motion on the table to eliminate the fees. So I have a motion by Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Garza to eliminate the fees.
And if we need to modify where it goes,
I'm going to be voting.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, I'm going to vote nay for the reason that I think that it's a knee-jerk reaction to phone calls. I think that we should consider reducing the fee and extending the time the permit is good. If we do that, then I would support something like that. So,
Judge, let me interject just one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
30 days is a long time, and sometimes drought conditions change and you get word from on high that you can't burn anymore. And the question I have is, do our permits take that into account? Are people being told when they get a permit that they're also required to follow burn ban?
Subject to state law?
They're giving a second page to that permit. That second page gives you all the different guidelines of when you can burn, when you should burn, when you shouldn't burn, and who you need to contact if you decide to burn. All of that's given as a second page to every permit that we give.
And does it say that they will follow instructions from the powers that be upstate, or what?
Well, it basically just tells you that, it gives you directions of when you can burn, and contact your local fire department before you burn so that they know that you're burning out there. I mean, it's a pretty simple form with a lot of guidelines.
Well, I mean, the 30-day idea, that may or may not be a good idea. The only legal issue I see is we're giving them permission, and unless we have some mechanism in place to assure that they burn during a time when it's proper to burn.
Another idea would be to possibly, if we do away with it, if we do away with a burn permit, then possibly bring back the fee when we're in drought or when we're in dry conditions. I mean, that's what it basically was intended to do, was to control the situation during drought. I mean, that's what the whole.
Well, you don't issue a permit during drought.
Right, you can't issue a permit during drought, right?
Right, if you all pass the
Burn ban.
Burn ban, right.
So,
Right now we're not, but January we weren't in a burn ban and we're still dry. We're still getting fires.
Right, but I guess the point is this: it's not a knee-jerk reaction, because we talked about this right after this passed.
Correct.
But in our discussions, my understanding was that you needed to raise some revenue to pay off some obligations that you had. And I said, fine, we'll let you raise your revenue, but you're saying no?
That's not when it was done.
Okay, did you and I have this discussion? Okay, I had it with Humberto. Do you remember that discussion,
Correct,
Humberto?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and you told me that you needed to raise some revenue to pay some things off.
Correct.
Okay. And at that point, I told you, okay, once you raise the revenue, then we'll come back and address this issue. Because in the rural community, it's a lot different than the folks in town, and it goes to what Commissioner Garza said, that if you're in town and you need to get rid of tires, you need to get rid of construction equipment, what do? You load it up, you go out to the farm road in the middle of the night and dump it.
Right, and
Okay?
it does happen all over the county. Again, this is y'all's decision. My recommendations were that. It's y'all's decision.
Your recommendation is to keep a fee.
My recommendation is that if it continues to be done through the fire marshal service, where we have a limited amount of employees, that if it's gonna be done for free, then hand it over to the constables. If it's gonna be done through our office, only because it paralyzes our office, and our budget, our budget is not a huge budget. And more importantly than that is that we have a lot of hurricane plans that we need to update and continue working on, because the state has already kind of backpedaled on what they're gonna be doing.
And do you feel confident that if it's handed over to the constable and they're watching it and enforcing it, we shouldn't have problems with fires?
We've done it before, and it's worked.
It's worked.
It has worked. I mean,
Okay.
we used to do it when we were back then, and we used to monitor it. It's all in-house, and who better knows the people from that area than the constable? It does work. All I'm saying is that will work, but eliminating the fee completely will not work if it's done through our office.
Right, but if we do it through the constable's office, eliminating the fee completely still works.
I would think so. It worked in the past.
Okay, and what about if we do a 6-month, and then we bring it back in 6 months and then do a comparison? Okay, how many, fires did you have before? How many have you had now? What are the pros and cons? And then we revisit the issue.
Whatever the commissioners want to vote on, I'm okay with it.
All right, we're going to go around in circles with this. I had a motion and a second to eliminate the fee altogether. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
I'm sorry, I got you all voted before I could open my mouth. I'm going to go along with Commissioner Garza and Commissioner Sanchez.
Okay, so eliminate the fees on a 2-3 vote. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
And, if you wish to bring back to us, or if you want me to put an item on the agenda to ask the constables to monitor this and do it.
Well, I think
through their
that's got to be the next item. We have to do that. I mean,
So I'm leaving with the understanding that we're gonna put it in the hands of the constables.
no, well,
Not yet.
Or not yet.
right now,
After we put it on the agenda and it gets passed, or.
right now, the only thing that you've been, if someone comes in for a permit today, there's zero charge for it. That's all that you can do at this point. And so you can't, I disagree, but wishes of the court. Now, the next item on the agenda is, and you can put it back on, or Pete, or whomever wants to put it back on, to give this responsibility to the constables, and then let them come and tell us why they can or cannot do it.
Correct.
But
Okay.
that's the next, so as of today,
Give them the responsibility.
you can give them all day long, but that doesn't mean that they're going to do it. I mean, they're going to say they're busy doing other stuff like we have in the past, and again, if they don't do it, there's no consequence other than come budget time and,
Yeah,
everybody.
and that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna see from this day forward to see if there's any disasters or mini disasters or extra fire. We'll start monitoring it so that we can in 6 months give you a report whether this decision had an effect on the county or not. And
Okay.
that'll be addressed
And
later.
as difficult as it is, you continue doing what you need to be doing.
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. Action items. We got everything, right? Okay. Action items, budget amendments, line item transfers, and/or salary schedules. If y'all need to go, you can go. It's a long meeting, oh, yeah. Thanks.
Judge Commissioners, the first 3 pages that you have are the first, let me see, 3? Yeah, the first 3 pages are your budget amendments. The first one that you see is a budget amendment for the Sheriff's Department out of the federal forfeiture funds. They're going to be, I have a salary schedule that I'm presenting for them as well, where they are creating 10 deputy positions that they are funding out of the federal forfeiture funds that they have received. And I'll get into the discussion on that when I present the salary schedule. Anyway, they're implementing federal forfeitures of $328,896. The next budget amendment is for the M&O courthouse, and they're utilizing insurance proceeds. Constable Precinct 6 is the next one, and then emergency management, where they are using citation fees that they have generated and they're setting up a budget for camera and police supplies and also for increasing diesel by $1,000. The next page, you have a budget being set up for the health grant 2012 and the tobacco. It's a grant called tobacco, that's $68,000, and also a budget amendment for a particular program that has the abbreviation of TWICES, and the health department is here to address it if there's any questions on that. The next pages are line item transfers. You've got one in there for PD&M, for the auditor's office, Constable Precinct 4, disaster recovery, that's under the PD&M, and they are moving $40,000 budget of extra help into salaries. You have old records retrieval, where they are moving $12,842 out of salaries into the extra help line item. You have a budget amendment for Isla Blanca, Andy Bowie, and for the parks capital projects.
I have a quick question. How are they able to move money from salaries to extra help? Is it someone that's not, a position not filled, or?
I believe they have extra funds in there that they're not going to be utilizing, and they need the funds in extra help. And I think they've already spent about $3,500 in extra help.
Okay, but I guess my question is, how do they have funds that aren't utilized? Is it someone that has a slot that's 35 and they're only making 30?
I think it's been created due to a vacancy, or, that exist in that salary schedule at the time. So consequently, it's lapsed salaries that they are requesting to move to extra help.
Okay, so they're lapsed salaries.
And they come to court for approval, yes.
And we don't have the lapsed salaries swiped for anything else, right?
These are records retrieval.
Which are required
Designated,
to
yes.
stay there, okay.
Right.
No problem.
Specific for that activity.
Then we go to the salary schedule. The first salary schedule that you see there is the one for the sheriff's office, where he is using federal forfeiture funds to create 10 new deputy positions. This salary schedule and the usage of these funds is requested to be used using the exception under the federal asset forfeiture guidelines. The exception is here that they will use it to pay these salaries to fund 10 positions, because they have deputies that are currently in general fund that they have assigned to work to specific task forces. So consequently, while these deputies are assigned to work to these task forces, this creates the void in the sheriff's department. So they can use, under the permissible uses, under this exception, they can use federal forfeiture funds to pay for these 10 positions. Now, at the time that these officers cease to be assigned to these task forces and come back to general fund, then the sheriff's department has to come up with an alternate funding solution for these deputies. And the federal guidelines give them 6 months to be able to either eliminate these positions or to absorb them in some other capacity. I have spoken to the sheriff's department. I spoke to the chief about this, and I asked them to identify not the officers, but the task forces that these officers are assigned to, that they're looking to fill from here. This will be a requirement that the sheriff's office will have to monitor very closely and advise us when these deputies come back from assignment, if they do, if these task forces cease to function or they come back into the general fund. Because once these officers come out from assignment and come back into general fund, the sheriff's department again has only 6 months to correct this and tell these officers that are being funded out of this salary schedule, your job is closed. You can't continue to, this funding has now closed.
The positions they're leaving were going to be filled also.
That's correct. So it puts we are not able to monitor it from the auditor's office, because we don't know where these officers, at what time they come back, from the task force to general fund. It puts the burden of proof on the sheriff's department. I have advised them that they will need to monitor this because in the event of an audit from the federal agencies to find out if these funds are being utilized correctly, if it comes to light that they are not, then the federal agency will look to reestablishing these funds back into their federal asset, into their federal forfeiture funding. So I want the court to be aware that this burden of proof is now being shifted to the Sheriff's Department, and we look to them to address that. And so that's on that particular salary schedule, and the department is 900-5602. Lieutenant, did you want to say something on that?
It only allows us for 1 year.
Well, this is a salary schedule for 1 year, yes.
But after that year, are we going to be obligated to continue the employ of these officers, or do they understand that they might be out of a job?
That's going to be the understanding, Commissioner, unless hopefully we get some new positions from you all, and we can help them out. But it's under the understanding that's it's only for a year.
Okay.
So
Well,
hire 10
that's
people.
like with all grant funds. I mean, I think
Correct.
employees that are on grant funds know that, once a grant ends, there's a possibility they may not be able to continue.
But you're taking existing employees and shifting them out of their county slots to put them into this grant, right?
Yes. Well, no, we have already people that are assigned to task forces. So they're away from their regular duties, so the grant allows us to hire for a year to substitute those bodies and work, their regular shifts or whatever they're working. So it's good for a year, and hopefully, like I said, we can get some new positions and keep them, or they are under the understanding they are going to be hired for a year. Now, in case there's a regular opening, we have a pool to choose from as far as the part-timers that we were going to, they're not part to be full-time, but at least we have those positions available.
Actually, under the exception that's being used, it's the salary of an officer hired to replace an officer assigned to a task force. And this is when a law enforcement assigns a law enforcement officer to a task force for a period of at least 1 year or the life of the task force, and hires a new law enforcement officer to replace the officer so assigned. The agency may pay the salary and benefits of the replacement officer from equitably shared funds, so long as a replacement officer does not engage in the seizure of assets or narcotics law enforcement as a principal function. So it's for the life of the task force.
So it doesn't just have to be 1 year.
No.
If the task force goes 5 years, it's basically a substitute deputy for the county because that person's doing
Has shifted,
task
yes,
work.
yes.
Task force work, okay.
That's how it reads.
All right.
Okay, so that's a salary schedule on the sheriff's division that he is looking to create. And the next salary schedule you see is for the disaster recovery grant, and that is for PD&M, and that was a budget amendment that was presented where he was moving the extra help to salaries. The next, I believe it's the next 3 salary schedules are for HIDA funding, and these positions are all currently being paid. The only difference is that we did not have a current salary schedule since their funding overlaps our fiscal years right now. This is a salary schedule that we're required to have in the system for county fiscal year 2012. The next salary schedule is for the DA's drug forfeiture fund, and it is budget neutral. You see budget modifications to a number of employees that they are paying out of drug forfeiture funds. The last salary schedule that you see is for the health department, and that is on one of the new grants that I just presented the budget amendment for your approval.
Any questions? Any additional questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Commissioner Benavides, second by Commissioner Gatz. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, carries. Claims?
Judge Commissioners, I have payroll dated March 16th for $1,669,110.89. I have warrants number 275657 through 276431, and ACH healthcare claims for $103,421.27. The warrant, the contract claims are warrants number 276041 through 276079. Today is the 13th. Those are contract payments that are payable in the month of March, for the month of March, usually the last week of March, if the court would like to set a separate release date for that at this time.
Questions or comments?
Why are we refunding money to the federal task force?
What claim number is that, Commissioner?
That's one register that's by itself, 276431.
276.
Just out of curiosity.
431.
Thank you, sir. It's by itself, Martha.
Okay, that is a loan that is being processed from the Drug Forfeiture Fund to Fund 120, which is the federal task force grant, which is where all the overtime is being paid
So it's
from.
between us? Okay.
Yes,
All
yes.
right, thank you.
Any further comment?
Any RMA claims?
No.
Do I hear a motion to approve claims?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Benavides and by Commissioner Hernandez. Please note my abstention on the affidavits I provided.
And the one that I turned into.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. I've been asked to table the minutes of February the 16th. Do I hear a motion to table?
So moved.
By Commissioner Hernandez, second by Commissioner Garza. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Item D, consideration and action for reappointment or replacement of a board member to the ESD. Commissioner?
Yes, I'd like to appoint Mr. Alfonso Guillen as the board member. And the reason being is recently I had contact from some people from the Santa Rosa area concerned that there was no fire protection as a result of the ESD cutting their contract with the fire department out there. And I looked at the board appointments, and it seems that everybody on the ESD is from the Brownsville area except for Mr. McShann, who Commissioner Garza recently appointed. When this issue came up, I called Mr. McShann to talk to him about what had been the reason for cutting the service in Santa Rosa, and basically, in discussing with him, it was a recommendation by their legal counsel and whatever the case may be, but the big issue I had with it was when you cut that contract, there's no fire protection service in the area. The closest that at these meetings can give an explanation, because when I called Mr. McShann, I mean, he's new on the board, but he said, basically, I'm going based on what legal suggested. I said, well, George, what about, the people living out there not having any fire service? He goes, you know what, I'm going to look into this. You have a very good point, but because you don't live out there and you don't see it, it may not hit home as much. And so my reason for putting this on more than anything is, if there's a problem with the department, if something needs to get fixed, fix it, not just cut off service, because then we're in trouble out there.
Commissioner, your points are well taken, and it will be fixed. I can assure you, it's just going to take a little bit of, but I'm well satisfied with Danny's been on the situation for a long time. I've been on the board for 22
Let me ask you,
years.
when did y'all talk? Okay, so in your mind, it's resolved?
It's going to get
It's going to get resolved. It's
going to be resolved.
Okay.
And I'm not shy enough to, I'm shy not to tell you that if the lawyers
All right.
haven't been able to work it out and they're not responding. or
Would
not-
you let the commissioner know when it's signed, sealed, and
Absolutely.
delivered?
Thank you.
And so we move forward, okay? So, yes, sir. Appreciate it, thank you. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Ayala, I think it'd be...
Usually, that would be like a dispatcher issue, though. So that's the ones we need to make sure that we get that information to.
Mr. Ray, I think it'd be important for you to share, without doing it in this setting, why not? Okay. All right, do I hear a motion just to acknowledge the discussion by Commissioner Hernandez? Do I have a second by Commissioner Benavides? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, item carries. Marta?
Judge, if we may revisit claims, please.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, item carries. Go back to claims real quick.
On the contract claims, which are number 276041 through 276079, I don't believe a release date was set for those. Those are contract payments.
Whenever we need to make sure we don't.
Get penalized or anything.
March 23rd, which would be a
Whatever.
week from tomorrow.
Authorized payment on or before March 23rd.
Well, they're run already, but the treasurers can release them on the 23rd.
Release them, whenever we can. That was part of the motion to approve, okay? Item D, we've done. Item E, action to approve Time Warner Cable to replace existing frame relay connections. Joe?
Commissioners, Judge, good afternoon. One of the things that we've been noticing over the last 3 years and working with the auditor's office is that our frame relay contract has increased by $8,000 over 3 years. In an effort due to county constraints for budgetary purposes, we finally got a hold of Time Warner through DIR, and we're able to save the county a considerable amount of money while increasing speed and reliability to all the locations. Recommend approve it, and I'm here to answer any questions.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez, second by Commissioner Garza. Discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, carries. Item F, Yellow Page denial claim.
So moved.
Is this one of the
Second.
ones that they send you and, moved by Commissioner Garza to deny the claim, second by Commissioner Benavides. By Commissioner Hernandez. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, carries. Item G, resolution adopting the realignment of certain election precincts. Roger. How has it changed from the last time we did this?
There's a modification, that's minor modification. It's in the packet.
It's all in the colored pictures, man.
Move to deny. Oh, no, just kidding. The unprotected from fire.
Judge, I was gonna put it on the screen, but I don't think there's any service on there.
Can't hear you.
I think they're having
We're trying to put it
problems.
on the screen for everybody to see.
comes Andy.
All right.
But, you put this one up there.
Andy, aren't you supposed to be on vacation?
Didn't we just add $8,000, Joe?
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying, Joe, didn't we just pay $8,000 more to avoid this?
Judge, Commissioners, I'm here. This item is in regards to the last order by the federal courts when they ordered the new interim maps. This modifies certain precincts, and I can tell you there's 4 areas that are modified to give effect to either the JP lines, Commissioner lines, and/or the court-ordered interim maps. There's also a couple of them that are there to give effect to the city district lines. And we have one that is a request by one of the commissioners to change a precinct line and also changes the commissioner's lines, and I will address those following this. We have that map on your screen, and it just shows the different areas of changes that we have. Most of all of the changes, with the exception of that precinct 86, which is the second circle if you're looking at it. If you want to put it up. That one right there. All of the other changes are due to the interim maps or the JPs and commissioners maps and the cities that we have to make in order to modify the lines to, like I said, to give effect to those areas. None of those precincts that are changing have a large number of people voting. As a matter of fact, we have most of them that don't have anybody
Roger,
voting.
are we changing more than to accommodate the new maps?
We're changing, yes, sir, with the precinct 102 and 86.
Okay. I mean, why are we changing those lines? I thought we were just going to change the lines to accommodate the new representative maps that we had from the state.
Yes, all of the other lines, with the exception of these, and I will address that. This is a change that was asked that we do and bring it up at the time that we make all the changes to give effect to the interim maps and to the other already approved JP and Commissioner maps. And this was for, this changes Commissioner Precinct 2 and Commissioner Precinct 1 common line between 86 and 102. They've asked us to bring this before Commissioner's Court to...
Yeah, but why are we changing it? What's the rationale for this change?
It was splitting neighborhoods. There's a big,
Well, we split neighborhoods all over the county.
Well, we tried not to. During this whole redistricting process, we tried not to. Everywhere we could use major lines. This uses a common line of a canal, and the best we could do was a canal on this one. And it kept this one big neighborhood together, which is south of, or just east of the cemetery, of Roselawn Cemetery. I asked Commissioner Benavides if that would be agreeable to her, and it was agreeable to her. And that's why we presented today. We don't have a problem with that. It affected about maybe 50 homes in that area.
Well, I just think that, we went through hearings, we went through a whole process to make sure that we had public involvement
You're right.
when we were doing what we did in regards to precinct lines.
Right.
All of a sudden, at the last minute, we're doing changes on precinct lines, not necessarily to accommodate, the maps that the state was sending us. And we're disenfranchising people from one precinct to another, whether I agree with it or not. It's like, there's no opportunity for the folks that are in those areas to come before us and say, we like it or we don't. And we made a big issue of going through that public involvement process.
Yes, sir.
And now
you know, we're arbitrarily changing lines.
Well, I'm bringing it before Commissioners Court because of the request that we
Commissioner,
had.
If you go back and look at the original maps before we did this, and what it is now, this is more in line with the original than the second. We actually put the people back that were together between 86 and 68. 102 is actually a new precinct, because that stayed on precinct 2. And that was through a discussion through Commissioner Benavides and myself that we decided that I would keep 102 and she would keep 101. That was kind of the swap we did back during the discussion process among ourselves. And this line that we did now actually puts everything back where it was originally. So we haven't hurt anybody.
Does this require Department of Justice approval?
Yes, sir. All of these changes will require
I mean,
DOJ approval.
I can see the rationale for the new maps at the state level, but precinct lines, we're gonna ask for approval again of change?
Well, it will require a DOJ approval, a preclearance on everything.
How often can these changes occur? I mean, can I put an item on the agenda next
These
week?
items, yeah, Commissioner lines and JP line, well, JP lines are, they can be brought up, but Commissioner lines, I don't know that you can be bringing them up every time something comes up. So.
Mr. Ortiz, let me ask one quick question here. When we readjusted these lines back in, what was it, December?
Have a public hearing?
The Commissioner precinct lines back in December?
When we addressed them last, yes.
We had a public hearing about that, right?
Yes, we did.
The question I have for it, and I just don't know the answer to it, but I thought maybe you might. In order to change Commissioner precinct lines, must there be a public hearing? Do you happen to know the answer to that question?
Well, I believe there is supposed to be a public hearing before a change to Commissioner's lines or JP lines.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is now that this has come up, the question comes up, I remember our order back in December gave the Commissioners Court and you some authority subject to their approval to make corrections based upon what was about to happen, you know, in the federal district court.
Yes.
You know, this question about, you know, whether we need a public hearing is something that, you know, I just thought of, quite frankly. I know you and I talked this morning a little bit yesterday afternoon about what was actually being changed.
Right.
But there may be some question about that. You know, if a public hearing is required, then we have not yet had a public hearing on a change of this particular precinct line. And I don't think this particular precinct line would fall within the liberty that was granted us way back when this was set back in December. And so, you know, I think that, you know, we need to know that answer for sure. If you're confident that it requires a public hearing, then we probably need to hold a public hearing to fix that precinct line. Now, and if we do that, the question is are we going to be able to do it fast enough to accommodate your needs?
I don't believe that if a public hearing is going to be required, that there will be enough time to do that. Because we are planning to do the conversion, if you will, this coming weekend with all the voters in their proper precincts. So if this is a requirement and there isn't enough time to make these changes, then, you know, the other changes need to be approved so we can move on. And then maybe just not include this one and address the others.
Well, you know, I don't have a problem supporting the changes that we have to legally do, but this is an arbitrary change. And I don't think that we're allowing the process that we normally would allow for making line changes on precinct lines that my experience in the past has done. You know, I don't know if it's legal or illegal. It just doesn't pass the smell test.
And Bruce, if you can't give us the legal okay to do it, should we hold off then? I mean,
Yes, sir. I don't know, quite frankly. I just, told Roger I don't know the answer to the question. I know that we did have a public hearing before when we were discussing changing these precinct lines. We had the public hearing before when we did it on the constable precincts. I can't really say at this point that we should go forward. To do it without knowing whether or not we have to do a public hearing. I mean, that would just kind of render it invalid.
Roger, a quick question. In your opinion, as elections administrator, must we have a public hearing for these changes? Yes or no?
For these changes,
The
no.
ones that we're talking about here?
No, these are modifications that were
Well,
allowed in the
modification is a
prior-
change. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. The modification is a change. Do we have to have a public hearing in order to pass item G?
No, sir, I don't believe so. The order in there, the court order provides for us to be able to make those changes based on the March 1st order from the federal courts. So it provides that, and all these changes are covered by it with the exception of this one.
Well, yeah, it allows us to do that, but I don't know if in that language it allows you to bypass a procedure. It says, yeah, you can do it, but I don't think it says you can do it without a public hearing. And my question is that, do we need to have a public hearing to make these modifications? And it's either a yes or a no. If it's not, then we can move forward.
Yeah,
If it's a yes, then we
but
cannot.
All of the modifications except for this one that we're discussing are okay with the statutory declaration that we got.
No, I
This
understand
This
that.
one is not.
I
This
understand
one-
that.
Okay.
Now, that's why I'm asking, can we move forward with this?
Yes, it does say that the requirements are suspended for an order of a Commissioner's Court adopted to comply with this section of the court order. So it does waive the
So
requirements.
it's saying it's basically waiving the public
Requirements of the
hearing process.
To accommodate the changes
Right.
that we need to for the
Congressional-
congressional races.
The House districts.
And the
congressional
state House
races,
district.
Not county
And the
commissioners.
others, well, those others are actually just small housekeeping items. I can't refer to them like that because the last time, if you recall, when the maps were being drawn and the colors were being placed on it, it was done during a Commissioner's Court meeting. Rolando Rios was here, and he actually went back over there and put the colors in there for the JPs and commissioners. And at that time, he did not follow some of the commissioners, or actually the precinct lines. And so when it was adopted, for example, precinct 14, when it was adopted with a straight line on Indiana Road and not the meandering line that includes two other precincts. And so in order to give effect to that approval and order, we need to make those corrections on the map for those precincts. So those are corrections that need to be done on prior approvals already. These are just in order to make sure that, because I cannot leave precinct 14 splitting a JP line. That's not possible, that's not legal. So these are corrections that need to be made based on an approval that was done before.
Let me just, I'm sorry, Commissioner, David was kind enough to share something with me a minute ago. David, can you tell the commissioners what Mr. Rios has said in response to your question about this?
Judge and Commissioners, I asked Rolando if we need additional public hearings to make minor adjustments to the previously approved Commissioner precinct lines. And his answer was that it was not necessary other than in the course of normal public comment.
So legal counsel is saying that we do not need to.
I agree to the change in the precinct 68. This is new area that I had acquired, okay? So I didn't have a problem when Commissioner Hernandez came to me and he explained. I didn't have a problem with it, but I want to ensure that we're doing this the proper way. I don't mind moving forward with this. If a public hearing is necessary, then we need to hold off. But you're saying that Rolando Rios is advising that we don't need it?
David?
That's what you're saying, that we do not need a public hearing?
All he says, it's not necessary other than public comment.
For minor changes,
Right.
okay?
I guess, is this considered a minor change?
Well, that's what I just asked him.
Then define minor.
Let me mention this too, everybody, please. I just looked at this agenda item here, and specifically, it talks about a resolution adopting the realignment of certain county election precincts to give effect to the United States District Court order. I don't see there where this
Would include modification?
yeah, this minor modification issue to that precinct 1-2 borderline is not specifically mentioned. And assuming that it had been, we would have had public comment, as I understand what Mr. Rios is saying, or the availability of that. But because this is phrased the way it is, I don't see any opportunity here for the public to figure out that this change is being made not necessarily as a result of the court order, but as a result of something else. So I think at this point, I would have to conclude that there has been no public comment, there's been no public notice of this particular item having gone on the agenda. And so I would have to recommend against taking action on that one part of this issue.
So in doing so, the resolution that we have before us, is there anything in there that we need to reword to exclude?
I think the only resolution change would be the map itself, because it refers to the map in terms of the changes being proposed. So Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but the map that you've attached includes the proposed change between 1 and 2's border in that particular voting precinct.
It does include it, and it has to be changed if it's not approved
Okay,
today.
so subject to fixing that back to what it was back in December,
Right.
then we can go ahead and subject to that, we could approve it.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not proposing changes that don't have to be made. I'm bringing it before Commissioner's Court because it was brought up to me. And so, I mean, if this change in that precinct that changes commissioner lines is not, it's not like in proper order, then, you know, I suggest we don't approve it.
Do we have to pass this today, Roger? I mean, is it time sensitive to get it done today, or can we do it at the next meeting?
We cannot do it at the next meeting. We have a deadline to make this changes by the 20th of this month, which is Tuesday.
I don't have a problem with any of the changes you're proposing except for the commissioner's precinct line.
I understand,
That's
Commissioner.
it.
Yeah. Yes, I understand
The others
that.
are all within the statute. And I would move that
Okay,
we
so
approve them.
what's your motion?
I would move that we approve all of the necessary language and resolution to include the changes that the elections precincts need to give effect to the United States District Court order as given to us in their interim maps.
Did you understand that? Were you okay with it?
It's the, which ones were they, Commissioner, that you're referring to?
All of them except for the commissioner's
Right.
precinct line.
Right.
Whatever, I guess whatever was necessary for the congressional and state districts.
Right.
With the exception of the county precinct, is what you're saying.
I'll second.
Unless it's, you know, I mean, whatever's necessary for the
I
congressional
understand,
maps,
yeah.
not a problem.
Right. The ones that will be needed to give effect to the city districts and that by law we have to
Right.
not allow to be split, yeah, okay.
And attach to the resolution whatever appropriate map, you know,
I will do
goes
that.
along with it.
I will do that.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Benavides. Any further discussion?
I do have a question. If, for whatever reason, this court chooses to have a special meeting Monday or Tuesday to make that change to the commissioner precinct, could that still be done?
That can still be done. We, like I said, we're planning on doing the conversion this weekend, but we can always go back and wait. If there's a meeting that will be scheduled, and then we will wait.
And I don't know, but I'm talking about in terms of if it's feasibly possible, and that's something the judge wants to order, then, you know, by doing this, do we stop that possibility, or?
Well, yes, I will have to hold on and do, and wait until we have a final definite lines on all the county, which would include this one here. So if there's going to be another meeting, yes, we would need to know before the weekend comes, because otherwise.
We'd have to post it before the weekend,
Right.
so.
72 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. I had that question.
Right.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Garza.
Item I, we have to defer item I until after executive session. Item J, consideration and possible termination of agreement with Graves Humphreys. Who's going to address that?
Judge Gano's here, I think he.
Well, Commissioner and Judge and Commissioners, Commissioner asked me to put this on. I think at the last meeting, I was directed to put on whatever contract we had with Graves, Stahl, and Humphreys, which is essentially net data, and to put into effect, to put before you the, permission to go ahead and terminate those agreements.
I think until we're ready to proceed with Odyssey, we need to
That was going to be
table
my
this
whole
item.
argument, yeah, that's my whole argument, is it's the timing of it. Odyssey won't be up until October.
I have no problem with that. My concern was that you're aware that this has to be done immediately, and that Judge Sally has to, if it's a 90-day or 120, it can be tomorrow, it can be October 1st, but it's going to change.
Right.
That's the issue.
That's correct. And she's sick today. I talked to her on the phone, and I've agreed, I think about 3 weeks ago, and she's agreed a little bit after that, but yeah, we're all for it.
Okay, then do I hear a motion to table by Commissioner Gatsa, second by Commissioner Hernandez? Thank you, Judge. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. And
Aye.
opposed, item carries. Do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
But before we do, Judge, just one quick comment, because we're going to go into executive session. Earlier, when we were having the discussions, I know I got a little excited in my discussions, and just on the air of being cautious, Mr. Hoskins, no disrespect I meant, and if you took it as such, I apologize, and, nothing personal. I had that conversation with Mr. Barrera, and you may not have been aware of that, so just want to make sure. Appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Chuck can sleep well now. All right, item 5A, do I hear a motion to go into executive
So
session?
moved.
By Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Gatsa. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, item carries. To discuss the following items, confer with Commissioners Court Legal Counsel regarding potential litigation pursuant to Code Section 551.0711A. Item B, confer with legal counsel pursuant to Code Section 551.0711A, B, and 2. Item C, confer with court legal counsel pursuant to Code Section 551.0712. Item
Judge,
D.
on item D, there's just a correction. It's not Constable Juan Mendoza, it's Justice of the Peace Juan Mendoza.
Okay, with that change, J.P. Juan Mendoza pursuant to Code Section 551.0712. Did I mention item C? Okay. Item E, confer with Commissioner Court Legal Counsel concerning Gerardo Rangel pursuant to Code Section 551.071A. Item F, deliberation regarding purchase of the following property struck off to Cameron County as listed pursuant to Code Section 551.072 as reflected on the agenda.